What I do, what I do, what I do, da da do, da da do.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the June 26th Foxborough Selectmen's meeting. I'll go over the agenda briefly, and I thank you for your patience. We had an executive session before 7. At 6:45, we did have an executive session to release minutes and collective bargaining, which we just finished. 7 o'clock, we're starting a few minutes late, but we will have citizens' input. At 7:05, we'll give a quick Selectmen's update. At 7:15, Dan Murphy, Gillette Stadium, or the Craft Organization, will be coming in here for half an hour to discuss billboard, water, and sewer agreement. 7:45, the Board of Selectmen will review the town managers and the Selectmen's goals and objectives. At 8:15, the town manager is going to present a suggestion for citizens' input policy. At 8:25, we have 2 items, discussion of the town manager's yearly salary adjustment, and also the discussion on town council. At 9 o'clock, the town manager is going to discuss the notice of trash collection and the contract award. At 9:10, the town manager is going to be talking about streetlights and the policy, and then we have a few action items. So, Ginny, you want to give the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So is anyone from Citizens Input, if you could just come to the microphone and introduce yourself?
Janet Sullivan Kennedy, Cocasset Street. The light did come on. My husband was home that day, and he said the guy was up there for 2.5 hours fixing that. But this other lights are still not on Sherman and Leonard, and also down the other end of Cocasset.
Don't you want the bill for the first one we
Oh,
fixed
well,
first?
if you have any questions on that, I have an email from a certain group that since they're gonna take care of things, I'm not gonna say the person's name, but you guys can have one
Of what?
saying that they're gonna take care of bills if the town can't afford it.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a Facebook thing.
No, well, what's fair is fair. Here you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
So as far as streetlights, if you want to wait around till after 9.
That's a little late, because I have a sick husband.
Okay.
But I'm glad the lights are on, but it's just, all need to be put on.
Thanks,
If-
Janet.
Mr. Chairman, if she could tune in at home at 9, I'm going to give the board the information about turning them on and all that.
And those of you watching from home, if you have Verizon, you're probably not seeing this because the Verizon connection is out, so go to someone's house with Comcast. Comcast is still running.
Comcast, reach out to your
on the
Verizon
government
friends
channel,
and
exactly.
have them come over for it.
And it's also streaming live, Foxborough Cable Access TV. Each meeting is streamed live on the internet as well, so all sorts of ways to watch. Anyone else from Citizens Input? Yep, Dick?
Oh, Dick Heidecker, Grove Street. I had 2 quick items. I hope they'll be quick. One is a notice for tomorrow night on the transfer of funds. I have emailed all of you what I consider what the bylaw stipulates. We have already talked with a couple of you on what the bylaw stipulates. I think it's fairly clear. Article 4 of the bylaw stipulates that the Board of Selectmen, in one case, acting through its town manager, but the final stage of that acting through the town manager is a majority vote of town meeting. It says alternately the Board of Selectmen may. No mention of the town manager whatsoever. Advisory at that point, the last 2 months of the year and the first 2 weeks into the coming year, may act on it and make the transfers and their limits and all that other garbage, which I'm sure you are aware of. My question is, if you're going to bring transfers in your name before advisory tomorrow night, should it not have been an action item tonight on your agenda or a prior meeting agenda so that the town as a whole gets an idea of what goes on. There's no televising or press reports of advisory, and the only way it gets around is word of mouth, either by the members or attendees at that meeting. It's my opinion that they can't vote on it tomorrow night because you have not acted on it in the manner expressed in the bylaw. The second issue is the one that's lengthy. It's been around for 16 months. You and I have talked about town council. We get a letter from Labor Council. Town council was the one that we discussed about at the December special town meeting. It's in 6 sets of your minutes. How do we get a comment from Labor Council to determine the issue of negotiations? And in fact, the case that they stipulated, the Ipswich case, had nothing to do with negotiations. It was a personnel issue between the town manager of the Ipswich and the fire chief. There's no relationship of that article or that decision to a decision that he has total carte blanche on negotiations throughout. It's my opinion the negotiation bylaw is there. It was the mood of town meeting. This is a town meeting form of government. The charter added, in my opinion, the town manager to that negotiating team as its leader. I understand it that way. I know I'm a kindergarten dropout, but I can still read. And I think the question is clear. The negotiating team stands. It's still there. It was used through 2009. It wasn't abandoned in 2004. You know, let's recognize this and get a response, not another 16 months down the road, but in the next week or two, with the letter that we sent and the date on the letter. As I said, the question that is posed to an attorney is the important part. I can ask him, am I legal? He'd say yes. But if I asked him another question, am I illegal? He could also say yes. So I'm just saying, it's the point of the question and the date. 16 months is intolerable. It shouldn't even be acceptable in the worst form. And I hope we can get answers on both of these. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. And some of this has come up before, but I'll just spend a minute on a couple of my thoughts since it's coming up tonight. Can the advisory committee vote? I discussed this with you at the master plan, and I did look into it. I looked at the Town Managers Act, and I looked at the town bylaws. I think they can. They have in the past. I think they continue to do it. It's your opinion. It's my opinion. It's your opinion that they can't. It's my opinion that they can, and they have been doing that. And I can share with you the sections of the Town Managers Act and the bylaw that I'm referencing. A couple things that we were working towards, and you'll see a little bit of it tonight, under the goals and objectives, one of the specific questions deals with the Town Managers Act, and one specifically talks about who sits in on that committee when they're negotiating contracts. Is it personnel? Is it a selectman? Is it neither? I've looked at different towns. There's no standard. I've looked at what we've done in the history, the short history, and over the last 2 years, and all three are different. So I think hopefully, once we look at this Strong Town Managers Act, which we started initiating that group to figure out what our town manager can and can't do, or should not do, we'll have that answer. But to jump on your opinion and say, pull this back from tomorrow night, everything that was being proposed to the advisory committee tomorrow night was sent to the board. We're looking at it. It's not like we're not in the loop, but to do that formal vote, I don't think we need to do it, and I don't think it's in the bylaw. But again, that's something that we're looking at. Okay? That's it. So, thank you.
I'll write a response to that.
Well, you can write it, but we're not taking any action on it.
Well,
and
all I'm
it's just going to
saying
come
is-
into the pile until we figure this out.
It says the BOS. It doesn't say anyone else. And if you're submitting something for a monetary transfer, it's either through town meeting, the first part of that Article 4 paragraph, or the second part, It's to them under your label.
Oh, no, I understand exactly what
I
you're
have
talking
no
about.
problem. If it's under your label, fine.
Yep. Okay. Anyone else from citizens input? Yep. George?
George Leonard, Aldrich Road. I have been making a number of comments over the past year about the handling of the preparation and the submission of our warrant articles. I have done some research in a number of towns, and I find that in a number of towns, they have a committee, warrant committee, to do this. Not that they are the ones who prepare the warrant, but they are the ones who review it before it's formally presented to the Board of Selectmen. I ask that you make serious consideration in forming this committee for Foxborough.
This is something in addition to the advisory committee and their role?
It's got nothing to do with the
Okay.
advisory committee. I do have one town with me right now that was the simplest issue. But the point of it is that they were a collector of information, and then they were the presenters, which meant that what has happened in the past, people have copped out.
Mhm.
I'm not responsible. I'm not responsible. Well, who is responsible? No one will take the responsibility for it. This is what this warrant committee does.
Great. Thanks, George. Anyone else under citizens input? Thanks. I'll be brief. I just wanted to give an update on some of the surrounding items that we're dealing with or participating in. Last week, just a little bit of kudos to the planning board. If some of you guys had attended, and I saw you and some members attended, the planning board effort. If you remember, there was a warrant article that we approved to do a master plan study. Last month, they did the first round, which was, what does the town want as a whole? Where are we going? And last week, it was, what are we doing around downtown? So that spurred a lot of discussion. The consultants in the planning board, I think, did a great job. And I think the next step is they're going to pull all that together. Part of that also, we and I hate to keep asking for us to go to more meetings, but this Thursday at the planning board, at joint meeting here at 7 o'clock, and that's that state piece on the housing, whether we let the state dictate how the housing works on the 40B, or do we take an active role? So that'll be this Thursday night, and that should be a good piece to the master plan as well. July 11th, we have a joint meeting with the school committee to appoint somebody in replacement of the person that just resigned. So that's on July 11th. So I guess it's a last call. If anyone's interested, please see the secretary of the Board of Selectmen or the school committee to put your name in that hat. And I think we have probably about 3 or 4 candidates already. Quick discussion on the post office. I know it was in the paper that we're looking at different options. I don't think this board has looked at anything on the post office. When the story broke, I think, Ginny, you, within a couple minutes, had emailed me to see if we're doing something. I did reach out to Jay Barrows, who reached out to Senator Brown's office, who reached out to the federal post office, and we're hopefully getting a group together. And I think that's important because that's a piece of the downtown, and it's a convenience for the residents. So when that time comes, maybe a couple of us can sit with that group and pose some pointed questions to them. And then just a little unusual, we did meet at 6:45 before the meeting. One was to discuss collective bargaining that we're doing with the fire department, and one is to release minutes, which are relevant to something else we're talking today. So I appreciate the 15 minutes that you guys stood outside the door. So we're going to get into 7:15. We're running about 15 minutes late. The craft organization, I'm not sure exactly what you're going to speak, but from my perspective, they approached me, and Linda went to a meeting to kind of a little bit after the postmortem of the casino, and says, you know, we need to work together collectively. What do you guys want? What do we want? They went to the water and sewer, kind of put a branch out to them. And at that meeting, we had said, well, why don't you come in front of the Board of Selectmen? We have a new member, and let's start off fresh, and let's see how we can work together to do something. So I think that's what my expectation was, and I haven't really spoken to any of you guys since then. But if you want to come up to the table and kick off a half-an-hour discussion.
Hello.
Hey. Hi. And thanks for coming. And if you could just, for the people at home, just introduce yourself.
Sure, Dan Murphy with the Craft Group. Ted Fire, Craft Group. Just get into it?
Sure.
Okay, well, thanks. As you mentioned, Jimmy, we did attend the Water and Sewer meeting on June 18th. Actually, we attended the last two meetings with the Water and Sewer commissioners, and we talked, we got a better understanding of the several things, the last two open bids. We understand the high priority the town has placed on sewer with the master plan. We talked a bit about the month-to-month agreement that we have right now on the advertisement of the billboards, and I think we all agreed that it doesn't serve either of us having just a short-term month-to-month. In fact, we're getting some pushback now from some of our advertisers with the uncertainty of being month-to-month. But we also talked about the larger deal that we tried to put together for 18 months or 2 years that included not only continuation of the advertisement on Route 1, but also a funding source for the IMA, for the intermunicipal agreement with the Water and Sewer Commissioners. And I know that we spent about 2 years going through a negotiation. I'm really not looking to talk about why it went sideways or anything. What we're looking to do instead is take some lessons learned from those meetings and see if we can re-engage the town on the discussion specific to advertising billboards, water and sewer. One lesson that was clear to us is that I think we need to be talking to a larger group, and we expressed that to the Water and Sewer Commissioners, that if we go forward, and we hope we do go forward, a suggestion we have would be that the town create, not unlike Mark, the Patriot Place Negotiation Committee that you led, an ad hoc committee of 5 members, which would include a representative of Water and Sewer, a representative from Board of Selectmen, representative from Planning Board. I think it makes a lot of sense to have a member of the town advisory there and town council. And I think we have a good starting point, where we left off in the fall, or I think it was September of 2011, and see if we can re-engage in the discussions. We have no interest in dragging anything along for months. We understand through discussions with Water and Sewer that they have a deadline of, they feel, around August to enter the IMA. And so we're just, as we expressed to the Water and Sewer Commission, we're ready to meet, this week, anytime, to see if we can sit down with an inclusive committee. And the thought of a 5-person committee, or the representative committee, Jim, was so that, each member could go back to his or her committee or board and, update the board and, in theory, have buy-in throughout the process of the negotiation. And we understand that, another lesson learned, that it's not going to be as easy as, negotiating a deal, signing a deal, and being done. Mr. Greeter, Bill Greeter, was at the last Water and Sewer meeting, and as an example of, Bill being there and suggesting, well, things are going to take some time, and some may move faster than other things. So that's just part of the, process, and having the hindsight, we'll better understand, how things could flow.
Well said. I can speak, but open up to the board for any. Before I do that, we don't have an attorney here today, and I purposely asked him not to come. Someone had suggested maybe have an attorney, because we don't know where this is going to go with committees or commitments. So I think my part was to hold back on the legal part and just have a kind of roundtable discussion in public of, where do we want to go with this, and keep it kind of general and upbeat and forward-thinking. So that's what I wanted to throw out. Sorry, Linda.
I think that we need to know about building that ad hoc committee, how that needs to be handled. I don't think it would be the same as your committee.
Well, the board would have to vote on the committee, and appoint a member of the Board of Selectmen to chair it.
If it's an ad hoc, yeah.
I think once we mention committee, it's swearing in,
That's
it's
when-
formal,
right.
it's take the oath. I don't think there's any way around it, and I don't think we should get around it. I think
Right.
that's the way it has to be. But I
Right.
think it's a formal appointing, each board appoints somebody.
Someone.
And then it's
And
public
then-
meetings and goes from there. It's
So-
similar to the discussions we had on the veterans group that we just,
Right.
you know.
Well, what we ended up doing was, we aren't,
putting it under the umbrella of the
it's
veterans.
under the
yeah.
umbrella of that. And
Rather
it just
than a
happened to
separate,
be, yeah. So, I don't know if that's how we would handle it. I don't know. That's just logistics. I think this is, a starting of a new. I think that we just put everything that has happened behind us and, try to get this relationship back the way
Sounds
that
like
it
Linda
was.
wants to chair the committee.
And say that I want to chair the committee. I'm just saying that it's a good feeling to know that we can put things behind us and move on both sides of the table, so.
And I mean that, typically, someone like Linda or another, sorry, Linda, somebody from the board would chair the committee and take input from the town, whoever wanted to be involved. I would imagine, Danny, you mentioned water and sewer, a member of water and sewer, and AdCom,
Planning
and who
board
else?
Planning board.
Planning board would be very, I would think that would.
And town council.
But, well, I don't know about town council right away in a committee. We've never had, I don't remember ever having town council on a board committee.
Well, I think he would.
They can be in attendance, absolutely, but they can't be on a board. Have we ever had town council on a board committee in your experience in any other town?
Yes.
I've never seen it in this town.
But maybe at the beginning to set something up and
Just
give
kind of
advice on.
give us
yeah.
guidelines of what we can discuss and what we can't discuss, and,
I think that council needs to be involved in some way, because if there was missteps with the 30B and the bidding process, I just don't want to have to go down that road again.
Exactly.
So maybe just
said we're
as
not
checks and
talking about
balances
this.
along the way,
Yeah.
you know.
Lessons learned, as Dan said.
And this doesn't have to be around the table.
Okay.
Feel free if someone wants to speak up. I'm not going to be picking people and putting them on the spot.
I think it's a great idea, in terms of lessons learned. I mean, I feel like, over the past 8 months, I've spoken to a lot of people in town, and I think everyone I spoke to is looking for transparency in how we conduct our business, and, looking for ways to establish a good, strong straightforward business relationship with the craft organization and continue progressing in that direction. So I think that's definitely the feedback I've gotten. I think the water and sewer piece of this agreement is the keystone to the entire thing, and they're the ones with the deadline. And I think that, we have a history, basically, that this type of ad hoc committee has not worked in the past for us. So I think we should be openly discussing all of this to bring these types, this type of motion forward. But I personally would feel more comfortable having bring an agreement forward from water and sewer, tell us what the selectmen can provide what the board can provide to support that. But it's really, to me, the water and sewer piece is the most critical piece here. It's tied in closely to our master plan and all of the other things that, we have discussed over the past 2 years, certainly knowing that those would be coming up for discussion on the table, to continue discussing those items, but I think we found our past experience was having these things contingent upon each other just wasn't working time frame wise. And now it sounds like water and sewer is really down to a crunch if August is the date that they're mentioning to you. So, I guess my thought would be to see public discussions of, whether it's with water and sewer, with planning, or with board of selectmen, that we discuss whatever is particular to that board in terms of control, but knowing that the real push is, at this point, water and sewer. I think, I'd suggest that that would be the first step, the focus being with water and sewer, and then have us jump in, have planning jump in as needed,
And I think to the water and sewer, you met twice with the water and sewer department. They actually took a vote at the last meeting, correct? That we were at to support going forward in a positive direction. So I think they
Right.
did go to water and sewer.
Right.
Because I think that's the biggest piece. Unfortunately, there's things that the water and sewer
Right.
can't do because it's out of their jurisdiction, you know, things that were on the plan that we're working on.
I think what's important to remember is that just as the town is working on their master plan, I believe that the craft organization is working on their master plan. And just as our master plan includes several different boards, their master plan probably does too. And I think it's important that we all sit at the table. And I understand how important it is for a business-to-business relationship, but I also want to remind folks that this relationship is built as a neighborly relationship and has been. And that's what I want to get it back to. I think that it's very important. We are losing folks in town. We are, I've been speaking to my public too, that speaks to me, and they feel that it's important that we get that relationship back, and I think that's the way to do it, is to include everyone who is involved with the master plan in Foxborough, with our neighbors, the craft group. So I think it will work. I think that there are things on there that I don't want the water and sewer part of this to be involved with some of the things that they may be looking for, so.
Right, and I think that's when I spoke to Mike Stanton about this, I asked him about this situation, and speaking for himself, he was wanting to have it separate, like all of us working at the same time, but them focusing with the craft organization on
Which
the
I
water and
think they
sewer
have been.
component piece.
Yeah.
Us focusing on whatever piece board that we have control over, and planning board focusing on their piece. So that the idea of having an individual representative was not what water and sewer had in mind.
That's,
So
that's strange.
that's,
Is that what they
Yeah.
said at the meeting?
Why don't we ask Mr. Pasella to come forward?
Is that what you remember from the meeting? You wanna?
Want to come join
Yeah,
us?
you want to, just talking about the role of water and sewer. Do you feel comfortable coming up and participating for a few minutes?
the best I can. I lost my voice.
You lost your what?
My voice.
Oh,
So, downstairs now. We'll get the mic nice and quiet,
Yeah.
close for you. Just yet.
Yeah, so, not a specific question,
Yep.
but, yeah, I'm sorry, for the record, if you wanted to just introduce yourself.
Richard Pacella, Water and Sewer Commissioner.
So you were at the meeting that Linda and I were at,
Correct.
where the craft organization came in
Yep.
front. And not to oversimplify it, but basically they said, we want to work together.
Yep.
There's to-do lists on both sides, and you were pretty receptive. We asked them to come to the Selectmen to kind of do the same thing, and now we're going to put both pieces together, plus a bunch of other
Yep.
stuff. How do you see, do you get any impressions from the water and sewer, that it's a one-person group, person to send over, a couple, or periodic going back and forth?
Yeah, I believe streamlined, but I think I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for Mike, as you mentioned, or Bill, but I believe walking away from that meeting that we felt that there is other participation necessary. There's certainly, first and foremost, this is a community issue. It is poignant to say that it's driven by water and sewer, but given the master plan and
Right.
everything else in town, this is either a benefit or certainly a decision that the community needs to make. So I think our component, we certainly are under the gun as far as if we move forward with the sewer, the tri-town sewer, or if it's just not feasible. That's a decision that really needs to be made. sooner than later. For that, we are looking aggressively to pursue conversation with the craft group. But again, only from my perspective, I think it is necessary that at least on a regular basis, even if it's not scheduled meetings all the time, but there needs to be some kind of group organization getting together and making sure we're all heading in the right direction, because ultimately it's something we all either have to bite off or walk away from.
Right.
You have a deadline of August, you say, for committing to Mansfield's district?
The IMA is to a point, from my experiences at the meetings, that I think Mansfield is in a position where they've made some alterations to try to accommodate Foxborough and Norton, given budget restrictions, and I think it's basically to the point now that, once we get to the end of the summer, the fall, if an agreement can't be made, or at least progressed, showing that everybody's progressing, that Mansfield's gonna pick up the pieces and continue with the sewer treatment plant as presently constituted and as the front-running community, and we're simply gonna be
Remain
consumers
customers. Yeah.
Well, the situation with timeline, if you're looking at the end of August, Rich, let's per se, 2 months, it's going to take a vote of this board tonight to create to appoint a member, to create a committee or ask for members. Then the people have 2 weeks to come back, we vote the committee in, you gotta schedule the meetings, so you're 6 weeks out. Is that enough time, you think, to get a lot of work done? I mean, I don't want to start a committee if it's 6 weeks is going to be a waste of time. It took 6 months to do the Patriots Place Review Committee. So do you have to streamline this committee? I mean, you'd have to, every board would have to vote a member in, including yourself, planning board, everybody. Linda would take control, I'm using you for example, Linda, I'm sorry. One of us would take control of the committee, because the Board of Selectmen would obviously be the chair of the committee. Then you have to advertise the meetings, you have to take the notes, blah, blah, blah. It's the time going to work? That's the question I have. I have no problem with this. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yep.
So if you think it's a good way to move forward, I agree with Linda, I'll agree with you, and let's move forward with it. And then I think the board should take action tonight, and one of the members is either going to volunteer up and take control of this, and we take a vote on it, and we move forward, and instead of having all this dialogue tonight and just beating the bush, let's just move it.
The only, I'm also very positive and want to move forward, but I don't want to leave people with the impression that, this is just to meet to get the sewer thing done, because, I haven't seen anything formal, but out of the goodness of your heart, you're not going to just jump in and pay for all the sewer. You're going to want something in return. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I said it months ago, and we're in business to protect the town. You're in the business to, benefit yourself and protect yourself. This is an area where we're in the middle. So that middle stuff we've got to figure out. So if there's a list of 1 or 10 things, that's probably more than we can accomplish during the summer months of July and August. But at least going in that direction positively to start the discussions, I think is the best we can do tonight. Because having gone through this over the last 18 months, there's a lot involved. And it's not going to happen in July and
We
August.
agree. We know that it's going to be, as Bill Greeter said, it's going to be a moving target. But if we could get together, and the thought, Lorraine, of having everybody in the room is that so it can be a productive discussion as opposed to making some progress with one person and then scheduling a meeting with somebody else. I think it will be part of the committee members to go back to his or her boards or committee to download. But at least, and I think we're well into the game with our 18 months or 2 years of discussions so far. So I think we're at a good starting point.
Again, I just go to, having these discussions publicly, I think will be very important. And, I think it will help, even if others of all of those different boards can be able to attend. Like when you had the Patriot Place Review Committee, there were members of other boards who were attending and were able not only to be liaisons, but, to have pretty robust discussions from having other members with them there who could come back and really give a lot of information to their board. So, again, I think, because this is exactly the type of working relationship we need to have, but I think it's also very important for the public who judge our performance on how we work with these types of circumstances to be able to understand what we are dealing with. So, again, I think the public discussion will be very important. So, whatever the outcome is, whatever Water and Sewer decides they think is the approach that they ultimately want to take, I think having that out in the open will be very helpful.
Can I make a motion?
Before I make a motion, anyone else want to say anything? Was there something specific you wanted to get from us tonight before we go in the direction of a motion? Or is it just you wanted to?
I guess
Put it
if you, vote for the committee, and if you like, I know we discussed this, and I don't know how we left it with water and sewer. If we could speak to your town council, and our council could talk to your council to talk about how such a committee could be formed legally. We just need your blessing for that, and then if you want to, make a motion to form a committee, that I guess that would be great.
I just want to suggest, would it be possible for us to hear, have Water and Sewer make a formal decision? Is your group in favor of this ad hoc committee approach? I think that's just one piece I would like to hear, if possible.
But I think that's the meeting that I attended, and you guys did formally vote. It was unanimous to move forward with the committee.
In discussion, but that's the piece that I'm getting from Mike is different,
Mhm.
sounds different. That's my only concern.
Yeah, we definitely voted that we were in favor of discussions happening. I can't say whether it was, with the committee or without a committee. but
Right.
The only question that was at hand during that meeting that I remember was that the Kraft Group had asked that their lawyer and our town council speak to find out how we make this mechanism of a committee work. And they weren't sure on that. No one really was sure on it. So that really didn't get voted on that I remember. Is that right, Dave?
No,
It didn't get
no,
voted on. It was like a discussion of, what are the nuts and bolts that we have to do. So I think that through Kevin, if we could have town council speak to their council to figure out how to do this ad hoc committee or what best would work, and I think that everything was going to be out in the open. I don't think anything was going to be in violation of any open meeting laws. We certainly wouldn't do that. So, I think if anything, if we vote on anything tonight, it would be to enable town council to speak to their council about how to go best about, forming
Yeah.
that and having public discussion.
Rather than jumping in and appointing something to a committee. I'm just cautious about that whole 30B billboard, private land, public land. If we go down that path and there's a committee to support it, we may end up in the same place as before. So whomever the town council may be moving forward, put those two people together.
Well, that's,
I just said, when you're talking about the town council, is it just what the committee will be able to do? What decisions the committee will be able to make?
Not decisions, no.
Or is it just guidance?
It would just be how best to form this committee, I think, and what the discussions would be, and procedure-wise, because I don't think we've had anything like this, other than Mark's, which was a little different.
a lot different.
Yeah, we don't have it's not like we're negotiating anything right here. We're getting information from them, they're gonna get information from us,
It was an impact
and then
committee.
present it,
About impact. It was not about.
Exactly.
It was all about
So that,
impact.
something was on the
Was
table, they
different.
were reviewing the impact. Here
Exactly,
we're-
and then there
we're
was a
voting to put
negotiating
something.
team, that was a whole different,
Kevin, you want to?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think I can help you on this, and maybe expedite things a little bit. I think the board members have all spoken that the idea of a committee is a great idea. I happen to agree with you 100%. We need to reestablish communication in an amicable way, and this is a good opportunity. We just dealt with this question, Linda knows, with another committee, the Veterans Committee, and here's what we found out. And so I think this is pretty simple. A committee formed of one member of multiple boards is perfectly fine. Each board can appoint a member to it. It's not a formal committee in the sense that it's governed by the open meeting law unless it wants to be. And it can have any range of discussion that it wants to have. And in this case, all you're doing is you're having a mutual discussion about whatever issues the two parties want to have a discussion about. You're not necessarily making any decisions that bind your parent boards.
No.
You're not negotiating a contract.
No.
You're just having a discussion. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We're doing it right now with a veterans group formed identically, members of different boards and committees, having a discussion about an issue, coming up with some ideas, and going back to the parent board. So if that makes it simple for you, whether you do it tonight or you do it at another date, I think it's just as clean and easy as that. Great suggestion. Board likes it, planning board likes it, water board likes it. Get it going, get the discussion open. I really don't want to see you waste 2 or 3 weeks of lawyers talking to lawyers. Things tend to get complicated, not that I don't love lawyers, and any in the room, please, no offense. But this is a simple idea of people just exchanging an idea. Concepts.
Is that how you guys see it?
I think we're off to a good start because I agree with Kevin.
Okay. Wow.
I think you shut your microphone off.
Pop the champagne.
You know you just got
So,
quoted.
so why don't I spearhead, as the chairman of this committee, I can reach out to Bill Early for the chairman for the water and sewer, and maybe, who's chairman of the planning board now?
Kevin.
And the 3 chairmen can kind of figure out a direction. And it may not be limited to people on the board. I was contacted by one resident who was a past member in zoning and planning and has time to do it and has a little bit of experience, and I think that would be a great, so it doesn't have to be, all from elected boards, but we'll figure out something, and I'll come back to this board, and they'll come back to their boards, and probably sooner than later.
Okay.
Is there a point person? Would that be you?
Yes.
All right. Fair enough?
Sounds good.
Good,
Thank you,
good start.
gentlemen.
Thank you for coming in, I appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is town manager's goals and objectives, and what this is a few years ago, I think it was under, was it Larry that started it, or the year before?
We started
With
it
Larry.
way back.
Larry?
No, it was way
Before
back.
Larry? Coming up with
We
goals
did
and
it, like, with
objectives. Is it?
Paul Feeney, don't you remember? And-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it goes way back.
And so the selectmen, in concert with the town manager, put together goals and objectives for the year. And then this is important because it guides the town, but it's also important because this is the measuring stick when we do our town manager's review. So at the end of the year, I think we had many more last year. We whittled some down. Some got taken off the list and others got added. Lorraine had sent out the list to all the members separately. We added what we wanted on there. We sent it back to Lorraine. So what are we looking at here? Do you want to?
What I thought we could do is just walk through these quickly to make sure that everybody understood, or, just to see if there were any questions about any of these items. Some of them are similar, so, we can reword them and group them together so that they're just one item instead of 3 individual statements. So starting off with having a better understanding of the Strong Town Manager Act, question need to change or abolish is one item. The next 3 actually have to do with water and sewer, developing an effective sewer strategy, work with water and sewer and others to develop effective sewer strategy, expand a program, support water and sewer efforts to maximize revenue productivity from signage, Route 1, work with planning, water and sewer, future growth projections impact. All that ties into the master plan. Work with planning for new economic growth, Route 1 master plan, look at downtown zoning, Route 1 development, monitor impact, request quarterly update, zoning subcommittee, planning board. So all of these in one way, shape, or form are kind of intertwined. Implement succession planning for key roles. Hire a human resources director. Consider other advertising options, professional associations to reach out. Liquor license oversight. Have community participation via the creation of a community review group. That was something that we had discussed back when I did the update on liquor license regs with Chief O'Leary. Develop the veterans benefit during deployment policy or bylaw. Town Asset Review Committee initiates sale of parcels, which is linked to the next item. Strategy for maintenance, renovation of all town buildings, build a new town hall. The next items are financially related. Review 3-year financial forecast working with school committee, complete fire department, police department overtime analysis, examine opportunities for additional revenue streams, continue to reduce healthcare expenditures, develop strategies for consolidation, streamlining service delivery by department, identify opportunities for regionalization of services, determine road repair plan funding, work toward municipal energy efficiency, renewable energy options, establish a government review committee. This would be to establish standards of conduct, such as operating procedures for the Board of Selectmen, establish greater contact with citizenry, which right now we have the office hours that have been started, adhere to timelines for stadium events, provide direction to Stadium Advisory Committee, and in order to make sure that there's complete vital information for events. One joint meeting annually with boards to review purpose and goals, regularly read minutes, more meetings with Advisory Committee. Hold public meetings for educational purposes, target completion of union negotiations before contract expiration, include a Board of Selectmen member as an observer in contract negotiations, comply with contract terms for the town manager, finance director, establish annual goals and performance reviews, and hold department heads responsible for employee actions. So that's the list that we have. We submitted this to Kevin and Randy for input to add any items or you wanted to add to it, and ask that you also provide us with rankings, and then I can tally all of the ranks and bring them back in rank order. Are there any of these items that anybody's got any questions on? No? Okay.
No, it's well done. It's compressed a little bit, so it's not such a huge amount in the past. I mean,
Well, it's still huge, though.
Yeah.
It
it's
is
a very
huge.
big,
I mean,
but
It
it's
is big.
it's a lot shorter than the last prior
It looks
year.
more like a 5-year than a,
Yeah, but
They'll cover
mean,
many years, I'm sure.
prioritizing some is definitely needed to
Yeah.
prioritize some, and I think we all get the opportunity to do that, and
Yeah.
they can give their input back, and rank and compile it, and
Yeah. And then once we prioritize it, then when we go through that the next time, we could make assignments. So some of them are obviously just Kevin's responsibility, or Kevin and Randy, or maybe Kevin and Roger Hill, but others might involve having a member of the board to help either facilitate, or like, for example, the Town Asset Review Committee, I'm chair of that, so I would be on there with Randy participates in that, and I know we've had your assistance, so I think tying that all together with assigning names the next time we do it would be helpful. How does this look to you, Kevin?
It's a great deal of work, and thank the board for coming up with all your ideas, and Lorraine for compiling it. Some of these look like they're priorities for the board to do, and my role is assisting you in some way which may not be immediately obvious here as you go forward. Other things here are clearly town manager responsibilities to get done. So my first suggestion is that the board think about kind of separating which of these things are really your goals, so that I can better try to come up with, what do you need me to do to help you? Others really are clearly town manager goals. I wouldn't encourage the board to try to start figuring out what department head should do it, because that's kind of my job. It's more your job to say, here's where we want the town to go. Now, Kev, you go figure out who you're going to have get us there. The other comment I would off here, and it was, it's actually, I'm pleased to see this because it is a big list. And one of the things we talked about from the one I did last year was that was a big list. I think the reality is we're not going to get away from the big list because the simple fact of the matter is driving the town of Foxborough forward in some positive direction is a big job. And it has a lot of moving parts and a lot of projects we've embarked on. And I don't think you want to make the mistake in the endeavor to create simplicity is that we just leave things off that are obviously there because they're going to get worked on anyways, whether they're on the list or not, they're going to get worked on.
Yep.
So you might as well have them on the list. Final comment, some of these are sort of statements of policy or purpose as opposed to very succinct, clear things that you want me to do that you can tell at the end of the year, we got them done or we didn't get them done. So I think what has to happen is once you've massaged this list and you say, okay, this is right, or we want these other 2 or 3 things added, or this thing changed, or whatever, then I think you've got to give the staff and I a little bit of time to break each one of these down into a little bit more, into some component parts, and make sure that what I think it is you want us to do is in fact what you want us to do, and that's for those component parts. In the goals we've done in the past, all these would be goals, and then underneath them, there would be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 steps.
Yeah,
And the idea being, if we do the steps, we're going to get the goal done.
right.
And of course, when I put a few steps on each one of these, the list is going to be massive again.
happens every year,
And-
yep.
And that's just the reality of what we're dealing with. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I would challenge anyone to look at this list and say, delete this one, or delete that one, because this is the component list of what you folks did. And when you did this back in 2010, remember that it was the board's list, the list that you folks devised, that I then expressed in an Excel document, which produced the great big giant spreadsheet. I don't think there's any way around that. You know, I think that's just where we are. You know. And it's a good thing, by the way. I think it's a very healthy thing. It means that we're getting a lot done.
If I could ask you a question, Kevin, right now is on the list, and we were trying to get done last year. Where are we getting an HR person?
We advertised a second time. As you all know, the first one recruitment didn't work out well because our best candidate got in a negotiation, and we couldn't do that. Our other candidates we didn't feel were strong enough to bring here. They wouldn't either mix with the team or they didn't have the right kind of skills. So we advertised a second time. Unfortunately, in the tumult, I'll say, of the casino debate just before town meeting, we physically didn't have an opportunity to get the committee pulled together to review the resumes and start interviewing the candidates. It's just proved impossible. So we decided to advertise for a third time so that we would have fresh candidates, because from the closing date to when we finally got around to be able to interview them was about 6 weeks after the closing, and we felt some of those candidates weren't viable anymore. So we advertised a third time. Deadline is August 1st. I would expect around, August 20th, I'm sorry.
2 more
So
months, huh?
I would expect that over the summer, we'll take resumes. We're going to start interviewing on a rolling basis. We're not going to wait till the 20th, then do them. We'll start interviewing on a rolling basis. And I would expect, Randy is going to chair the initial screening committee. We've already picked the folks to staff that. They will, very shortly after the 20th, give me a list of 3, 5, whatever finalists. I'll appoint a second committee. We'll interview them, and what I'm hoping is to arrive at a candidate before Labor Day, and then 2-week, 3-week notice, something like that. We'll have somebody here and on board before we start the budget cycle.
Would a member of the board want to be on that committee?
I want to take the job. How's that? Can I just take the job?
No, I'm just saying, should a member of the board of selectmen be on the interview committee?
I think we should probably have a discussion about that. That's never been done before, to the best of my knowledge, and I think it's ground that you'd want to proceed very cautiously on and make sure that that's the direction the board wants to go in. I would suggest you'd want to be very cautious about that. It's not anything, it's never been done before, I'm told. I don't know. I've only been here 2 years, but I'm told in all the years prior to that, it's never been done before, so you want to,
Who do you have for a committee now that just looks at it?
what's that?
Who is on the committee for that? Is
The
there a
second
committee or is
committee?
it just you?
I haven't picked a second committee yet, but Randy, do you want to say who's on your committee?
First committee is myself, Sandra Herman, Lisa Sinkus, Bill Yukna, from the Personal Wage Board, Nancy Basher, and we did have an AdCom member last time, but we're not going to this time, after guidance.
That's 7 people.
So 6.
And the majority are town workers, right?
I'm sorry?
And the majority are town workers, then?
Yeah, what we've done with the first committee, which is the screening committee, if you will, to reduce
Yeah.
it from the big pile to the
Yeah.
small pile, has had primarily staff people that work with the HR director.
Jay Hatfield.
Right, and then the second committee is going to be formed, a mixture, which is what I did the last time, of people who actually would work with the director and people who are stakeholders in that they're board or committee members. I had a couple of citizens on there that had some expertise
That's
in
what
that
I
area.
thought. I thought there was a couple citizens, yeah.
And
Good.
it ended up being what I thought an outstanding committee. And we used the exact same approach with the DPW director, and I think both produced real dividends for the town.
I just, I'll openly say that I think when you're hiring a human resource director, that I would think it would be detrimental to have anybody that works in the town hall doing the interviews, because that's the person that they could be involved with. Am I right or am I wrong? I know when you interview people that could possibly be dealing with you in a disciplinary matter, doesn't that create a situation?
We're off track a little
We are
bit.
getting way
Oh,
off
we are
track.
definitely
yeah.
off track, because
Yeah.
we're not on the agenda for this, sorry. No, we're definitely
Let's
off
hold
track.
that, but I think there's some merit in there, but there's precedent, and just 2 suggestions and a question. Lorraine, you're gonna take all of our ratings on this, combine it with Randy's
Put that in the agenda.
and
And
Kevin's,
Kevin's,
and then
yeah.
come up with that. And then can you also put a column in here on what is specifically town manager's role?
Yes.
And what is our role on it?
Section amount,
Okay.
yeah.
And then to kind of put it in perspective, again, this is for the benefit of the town, but it's specifically tied into Kevin's contract. Kevin, we were to have his review done between March 1st and May 1st. We're a little bit late on that. And the pushback is, this had to be done in the month of June, according to his contract. So it's not done tonight. We're not meeting again until July, because
July
Thursday it's
10th.
a joint meeting with the planning board. So Kevin, can I ask you, could you please send me a letter or an email that says you're okay with putting this off
Sure.
from today until the month of July, and we'll put this on the agenda? So when we see it, it'll be all finalized, and
Right.
it'll be done in July.
Last year, the board finally adopted the goals and objectives in March. So if we get it done this summer, we're months and months and months ahead. So
Well, we need
But
to
I'm
stick
also,
by
I
your
want it to be,
contract,
I
though,
want it to be
Kevin.
tied to your
Yeah,
contract,
we
though.
want it.
That's-
So we should
We
hand it
gotta-
back to Lorraine.
Yep. Thank you.
You already had mine, right? Oh, you want them back?
Yes.
Okay.
You guys all set with this item?
Yeah.
There was a hand up, I just wanted to, he had a question during this, so.
If I may, George Leonard again. Mark, to comment to you, under the Strong Managers Act, the Board of Selectmen have the right to disapprove any hiring which is done by the town manager. Therefore, it will be rather a conflict of interest if you were to be on that committee.
Thank you.
Point.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay.
All right,
Right on
can we
schedule.
take citizens input policy, do you expect that to be longer than 10 minutes?
Oh, I don't expect it'll be more than 5, if not even that long, depending on if you have any questions. Citizen input policy is a controversial subject, because town councils universally don't want boards to do it, and elected boards universally do want to do it, because you want to engage the public, and have some time for people to come in and talk to you. Town councils get very agitated about it, because there's a lot of case law where people have come to that microphone without you knowing what it is they're going to say. And while 99% of the folks that use it, Dick every week, George occasionally, have very healthy and productive comments to make, there are unfortunately some people in the world who might use the microphone and do something which is libelous or in some other way injurious to people. And that's why the town councils get very excited about having open mic. Because by the time somebody commits the libel, it's too late. You can't take it back. And if your office is used for the purpose of allowing that, we are now culpable and liable ourselves. So, over time, the City Managers Association has an actual little part of their website where they talk about this issue, and they give boards suggestions, councils and boards, suggestions about rules that you might want to adopt that modify the discussion. Doesn't prohibit it, but modifies it. You can give more or less structure, but some kind of structure is probably a good idea. For instance, you have already some informal rules. You usually limit speakers to 2 or 3 minutes. You report to the speakers that the board can't engage in a back and forth because that would violate the open meeting law because it's not a listed agenda item. So you already have some rules, but they're informal. So my suggestion to the board is that the board adopt some kind of formal rules, which you could have whatever it is you decide you want or don't want. You could have on a piece of paper, and you could put it right over there, and so folks know if they're going to talk, they know what the rules are. Like, don't libel anyone. Don't talk about people, personalities, things like that. Limit your comments to X number of minutes. Expect a quick response potentially from the chair, but no extended conversation, stuff like that. So that's just my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, and I think it might be helpful and make the exchange more productive.
I mean, I have some thoughts on it, but anyone from the board?
No, I agree. I think that's a good, and then they're simple rules. They're not difficult, and easily understood. I think it's good.
You know what I say? I've always said, anybody should be able to speak at citizens' input. They obviously know now that we can't get in a discussion, but if they have something that they need to bring to our attention, I want them to have the time to do it, whatever it may be, so that's...
Lorraine?
I think it's a great idea, keeping it simple like that, and having it come under something like, establishing the operating procedures of the Board of Selectmen, standards of conduct, like that could fall under that category. I think ultimately, the chair would always decide who can speak or can't speak, because that's how it's supposed to work, and I think it would be important just to have that clear to anyone who comes to the microphone, that they could be shut down by the chairman if they decide that they are heading into libel or, assassinating someone's character at this table, that it's just not appropriate to permit, So.
Mark?
Last time we stopped somebody from speak, didn't we end up with a civil lawsuit against us?
No comment.
I want to see some rules before I discuss this any further, if anything, just to observe what they might possibly be, but that's it. I'm not voting on nothing when it comes to, and if there's going to be a set of rules and this simple, like state your name, don't libel anybody in the Board of Selectmen, don't use,
No, they can libel us, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
They just can't libel anyone else. They can libel us.
All right, well, let's see the rules before we move further with this.
I think my thoughts are, one of the first things I did when I was chairman was I suggested not open meeting, the...
Office hours.
Office hours,
yeah.
because I know people are nervous enough to get up to the microphone, and, I think we represent the good, the bad, the ugly. I don't mind if someone gets up there and just speaks off the cuff. I think it's up to the chairman and the board to kind of simmer it, but, I don't think we need common courtesy rules posted that's going to make people feel a little more uncomfortable. It is what it is. If we got to, field a curveball, we'll deal with it, but, I think the less rules on citizens' input, because I think that's what it is. People aren't expected to understand the rules. If they've got an issue about a dog, a light, come up and say it. If it's off base, we'll tell them. But I just don't want to put another list of rules up on the citizens' input. And I think that's our job, to understand when to shut them down because of libelous stuff, but not their responsibility.
Who's the good and bad and the ugly?
Wait a minute.
Don't want to put a label on you, Mark, but,
He's libeling me,
You
no.
Can I just mention office hours for July?
Yep.
We're going to change it from July 3rd to July 10th, right? Is that what we decided?
Is it the,
Okay,
4th of
no
July.
office hours on July 3rd. I'll be down the Cape. But we'll be here July 10th, 10 to noon, and then 5:30, 5 to 6:30. Thank you.
Thanks. So any consensus on the board on the citizens' input for Kevin? Anyone feel strongly one way?
I lean towards you and Linda. Big, no problem about it, but,
As
no
long
doubt
as
about it.
people understand when they come up to the microphone that, Big Bad Jim might shut them down and say, you can't go there.
The
Don't go
entertainment
there.
factor anyways, I think
But-
we
Well, I
just let
think
it keep going.
it's common courtesy and common sense. I mean, I don't think you have to print them, to be on the microphone, but I think it's just, I think you could make an announcement at some time, just be aware of this is what's expected at citizens' input. People are welcome to come. It is citizens' input, but, have a little common sense when you get up to that microphone.
Yeah.
And I think we have, made mention of it, especially when the open meeting law changed, that whole thing about citizens' input. We let them know, like, right off the bat that, this is, and that's why we have it on here, that it's
Yeah.
topics that we don't know and therefore we can't discuss. And usually, if anybody brings something up, the chair usually states, thanks for your, but we can't
And I don't think
engage.
it hasn't been an issue that we've got to change. It's not like
Oh.
week after week after week that we're dealing with something. I just haven't seen it an issue.
I mean, people were upset at National Grid, and, they may have said some things, but National Grid hasn't come back at us, so.
Okay,
All right.
beat that one. Can we take something out of order? Let's put the, because I think the 825, the town council and the town manager is going to be a little more lengthy. Streetlights and notice of refuse collection contract. Do you want to talk about the trash contract?
I gave the board a memo, I just, unfortunately, I apologize, we had a little disconnect in the office, but the chart that was supposed to go didn't get on there, so I just want to give you the chart and I'm going to take you through it a little bit. The bottom line is that, connect this, anybody wants them? The bottom line is, this is a terrific deal for Foxborough's consumers. I've awarded the contract as of today to the firm of Russell, I think it's Russell Waste Management is the proper name of them. The proposals, well, let me just say, and I'm going to turn it over to Randy to go through the matrix on the one you see in the back, but the bottom line here is a good deal for the ratepayers in town for the following reasons. Number one, the pricing that we've been able to achieve with this bid basically means that folks in town that, thanks, Kev, folks in town that use the commercial, the town municipal contract, and I think that's about 80% of the homes in town, correct? Are actually going to have a price now guaranteed for the next 3 years for sure, and with a 2-year option, which is less than the current price they're paying. So that's a great deal.
I'm sorry, which company? That was Russell?
Russell, R-U-S-S-E-L. The other thing is, because we've got a surplus in the trust fund, we're going to be able to give the ratepayers a free month, the month of July. People will not have to pay for.
They will pay for bags and tags.
Right, they will have to pay for bags and tags, because we have no way to pay for that. But the charge to the hauler for the month of July will be free to people in town. So, that's the highlight of it. And just to give you the rough number, the savings to the individual homeowner is about 23% compared to current pricing over the 5-year life of the contract. So this is going to save people a fair amount of money. Well, that's the good news. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 proposals from 7 company. I used a committee of myself, Randy, Pauline, the health director, Kevin, who's here tonight, Bob Swanson from DPW, who has managed the contract in the past, and Roger Hill, the new DPW director. The first sheet you've got looks like this. Everybody took the proposals according to a standard questionnaire and evaluated them. And as you can see, 2 companies came very close, Russell and Waste Management. There was a small margin between them, but they scored at the top. And then on the pricing side, of those 2 top companies that scored the best, and that was in categories as the amount of experience they have doing this sort of thing, a proven track record in other communities, how many municipal contracts do they have the ability to do the billing, because we're getting out of the billing business, which would be a substantial savings again to the town. So those 2 companies rated the highest. We then looked at the pricing, and of those 2 companies, Russell submitted the best quote of the 2, and so that's the basis on which the award was made. In a very highlighted way, as you can see, there is a great deal of complex analysis that's gone on about this bid, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. The new contractor doesn't start till August 1st, so we've got about 4 weeks, 5 weeks to get word out to people in town. We had a meeting with them today and basically said to them, we don't want any problems with this transition. We had some problems in March when the current vendor sold out to Waste Management, and we had some issues in town. We don't want a repeat of that when we get this new vendor in August. The new vendor comes extremely well recommended from their municipal clients. We're not anticipating any problems. They're over in Walpole right now doing a terrific job. So we don't think there'll be any problem, but we admonished them, we don't want any problems. So we went through everything we can think of in terms of issues that could emerge and satisfied ourselves that we buttoned all those up. There'll be a little bit of transition issues, but we're hoping to have it minimal.
What is the money transpire? You send the bill now to...
Yeah, what's going to happen is, at the current time, the town bills the homeowner,
Okay.
and then the town remits payment to the vendor, to the company. We're going to transit away from that because we're spending a lot of time billing people, collecting, tracking it and all that, and we've got a clerk who doesn't do much of anything else except that. So we're going to get out of that business.
I wouldn't say that, but.
Well, okay, that's true.
It's a loaded
But
statement.
she spends a lot of time doing that. We're going to get out of that business, and we're going to turn that billing and collection effort over to the vendor. They're very good at it. This is their business, not ours. We don't want to be responsible for outage, for people who don't pay, for delinquencies and all that. I mean, why should the town, the taxpayers, carry the burden of that? So we get out of that business altogether. It'll be billed directly to the consumer by the company.
So Kevin, like I have cable, and we do a contract with Verizon and Comcast in town.
This
And
is,
they
this is
bill me.
identical to the way
They bill
cable's
me.
done.
Right, so
We offer a franchise.
I guess-
They do the billing.
all right, so what is the town, why does the town have a contract? If they're gonna be billing
We're,
us directly, we're gonna be their customer then, right?
no. The reason the town has a contract, presumably, and by the way, I don't completely know the answer to that question, because this has been going on
Is
for
it-
decades. so-
Right, and, yeah,
Presuming, because the town, on behalf of the citizens, aggregates the business so that we can offer to the citizens a much lower price than they could get if they were on their own. That's the notion. What typically happens is we have this municipal contract with 80% of the townspeople on it. And as you can see,
that
we've-
could, like, go down, or it could go up, or it could,
No,
right?
this contract has gone down from current pricing. This is lower than currently is being paid.
What I'm saying is the users could go down,
The what, I'm sorry?
the users.
If someone decides not to take the service and
Oh, sure.
go to the dump
Or,
yards.
or
and
it could go up, like,
Correct.
people could
Yeah.
jump,
The
from-
vendor bears the risk, not us. The vendor bears the risk of whether more or less people decide to participate. That's on him, not on us. We get nothing to do with it. And what we're anticipating is what happens every year. Other vendors come into town who are not under town contract,
Yeah.
and they offer lower pricing.
Yeah,
And so the consumer gets a great deal here, because the consumer can take the town contract at a very good price, or if the consumer can get a better deal from someone else, they can go get a better deal.
That's been
It's
going
great.
on for decades.
and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not like a,
No, there's no requirement that anybody do the town vendor. There's no requirement at all. So if somebody can get a better price with another vendor, more power to them. Now, the Board of Health does not currently license the haulers, and they are by law supposed to do that. And I'm hoping that Kevin and Pauline are going to give the board some guidance that they are supposed to license the haulers. We don't do that right now, to the best of my knowledge. I don't know a town that doesn't license haulers, because you don't want refuse haulers running around town that aren't meeting some minimum standards for public health and safety. And that's where the Board of Health, that's why the Board of Health, by law, is supposed to license it's called an offal hauler, OFFAL hauler, and I believe it's under Chapter 140. So I think the Board of Health will be doing that in the future, just to be sure that, for instance, trash trucks don't leak, that they, in fact, aren't dropping trash all over our streets. But, subject solely to the requirement that the Board of Health license the haulers, it's a competitive marketplace. People can take our bid or not. However, experience has shown that the vast majority of people in town take the bid, and I think you're going to see that stay very solid, because this pricing is now better than past years.
so, let me get this straight. So if there's any kind of problems or anything with the trash pickup from these people, they should be going to the health department, correct?
No, they'll call an 800 number directly to Russell Disposal.
So it won't have anything to do with our health department?
Correct.
Well, the only way the town will get involved
Violation.
is if there is a violation of the contract. So, for instance, let's say the contract says you have to pick up once a week.
Yeah.
Let's say the contractor skips somebody,
Yeah,
and that person calls the contract and says, hey, you skipped me. And the contractor doesn't remedy the problem. That person has a right to call the Board of Health, and either the Board of Health or myself, as the contract enforcing entities, have sanctions built into the contract that we can levy against the contractor. Liquidated damages, things like that. Or we can say, go out and pick that consumer up right now, or we're going to hit you with these penalties. So think of it, it's identical to the cable contract. It works identically. We issue, in essence, a license, in this case, a bulk contract. We become the enforcer of the contract, but it is a private transaction between the homeowner and the private contractor, not with us. We just enforce the provisions. Just like on cable, if somebody has a complaint, they go to to the vendor,
yeah.
and then the town serves as an appellate authority, if you will, if for some reason the cable company doesn't address it.
So is the town itself a customer too? Like,
Yes.
picking up
Yeah,
at
they pick up,
school?
they
Yes.
pick up our trash.
And we get billed for that?
No. The way this used to work is we would collect a fee from the homeowner, and that created enough surplus in the trust fund that it would cover the town's cost. We would be picked up, and we would pay the vendor, but we would pay it out of money collected from the homeowner. So buried in the fee was a margin that basically covered the town's cost. Now what we're going to do is we're not going to pay anything. The schools in the town will be picked up at no charge, but buried in this fee is a small amount
The
which
taxpayer,
the homeowner pays who chooses to take the service.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's identical
As in
to
the
what,
past.
it's exactly what we were doing before.
But at a
It's just
savings.
structured a different
I
way.
guess I just never really looked at this as deep as I have in the past couple years, and so. Interesting.
Okay. Jeannie?
So what will the fee be? For,
Well, given that we're going to give a free trash month on the biannual fee, so the first bill, the first year will be an 11-month bill broken into a 5-month and a 6-month bill, which Russell will put out in July, payable in August. But the annual amount will be $137.45 for the first 11 months. And it goes to $141 and $145. Right now, homeowners are paying, those with the service are paying $160 annually. And then on top of that, we have been providing a price concession with the surplus in the fund, the equivalent of $26. Remember when we reduced the price? And those costs, were still real to us, but we used the surplus, basically plowing it back to the residents and billing them less, and the town picking up the balance out of the surplus. So in comparison, that's in comparison to the equivalent of $186 cost to the town. That's the annual fee split up into 2 chunks. The bag and tag program, which is, as everybody who can use the service, they use bags and tags to put their trash out. That will continue, but there's opportunity down the road to move away from that, to move to automated collection.
Fully automated.
To fully automated collection, which then it's more expensive for the hauler to offer that, but it would still be at a savings because now the bag and tag costs go away as well, because you don't need those. And on average, per resident, based on our customer base and what we collect in bag and tag fees, on average, that is an incremental $75 a year, on average, per resident. So that would go away. So those are future options that we would have, and that's a policy matter.
That so-called automated is what you've seen in other towns, where you typically will see 2
Mansfield?
trash barrels, a green one, one particular vendor, there's a green one for trash, and then there's a green one with a yellow top, and that's for recyclables. A truck comes along, picks it up, dumps it. Another truck comes along later, picks up the recyclables. No one ever gets out of the truck and does anything. That's a fully automated system. It's more expensive, even though it's counterintuitive. You think it'd be cheaper, because the vendor has to go buy all those green bins and
do the
costs a lot of
sorting.
money.
And do the sorting, because right now, this is the lowest cost way to do it, is basically the residents are doing the sorting work. So when you move to automated, now the sorting has to be done with machines.
And there's nobody looking in the barrel to make sure what's in it either.
But what if you have more than just, what if you're doing a major cleanup of a basement, and you have, right now, you'd have like 10 bags. But if you go that fully automated, all you can,
There are options to handle that.
I wouldn't start mixing tonight apples and
Okay.
oranges, because
Okay.
fully automated is nothing we're even considering. The only reason we're mentioning it to you is because you're the policy board. If this is something you want to see explored, we'll be happy to explore it. We've built it into the contract so we could do it if you want us to
Yeah.
pursue it.
Okay.
But it is not in this bill.
can I just, will there be bulk pickup the way they have it now?
Yes.
Okay,
Gonna mirror the.
Call the
mirror
vendor
mirror
the same way
program.
it's done now.
okay.
Just if I could, Mr. Chairman, on this point I think it's a great segue to a particular aspect that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. With regards to bags and tags, and with regards to any major cleanups that people may be doing over the summer, as opposed to the spring, the bags and tags that we're using today, the yellow ones, we will no longer be using those ones at the end of July. So on August 1st, when we move to Russell, they're going to have their own bags and tags that they will contract for and buy, and we'll still use the same distribution points in the town and the surrounding areas for that. And we will make everyone whole. Anybody who has any excess, bags and tags, we will make them whole, including those who sell them. However, if you have them, this is a great opportunity to use them up to clean up your property and use up all your bags and tags.
Question, James?
Let's just keep, Lorraine?
I'm all set.
Any considerations for the seniors, the disabled people in town?
Yep, there's an abatement program which we discussed today with Russell, and they'll continue to honor that.
Great, thank you.
That's a low-income or hardship kind of a
Yep,
program.
yep.
And just at a process, so there was 6 people on the committee, there was 7 vendors, 2 envelopes. One was just technical and qualifications, so the committee looked at those separately without any price, and that was unanimous for this company?
Well, you can see the results.
Yep.
You can see each person's scores over each company, so you can see how
So they get
everybody
the high,
scored.
yeah, each
And
person,
once the
each of the
scoring was
6.
done,
The town clerk
strictly on the
opened,
qualifications, then we open the pricing.
the
Pricing.
town
And
clerk
then
held the
this-
pricing envelopes until we had finished the scoring, and the town clerk came into the office with the envelopes, and they were open one at a time.
So the 6, each person got 1 vote? Okay.
Well, up to
So
20.
you were part of the committee, Kevin? You were
Yeah.
one of the 6?
Yeah, each person on the screening committee could award up to 25 points per vendor, according to a common set of characteristics that each vendor was weighed against,
Okay.
which were expressed in the RFP. Everybody was told these are the basic things that we'll be looking for. Once the most qualified vendor was selected on the basis of qualifications, then we looked at the pricing, and it just happened to work out, it doesn't always, but it happened to work out, that the company that we thought was the most qualified happened to also be the lowest bidder. So that worked out great.
Okay.
You see the discrepancies, though, I mean, I'm not putting any, and Kevin, you, with Waste Management, you said they were very close. You have 25, Russell is 25. And everybody, when you get Randy's got Waste Management 17, Russell 24, then it's 23, 24, 22, 23, 25, 25, 25, 25. So the biggest discrepancy between Waste Management and Russell's was Randy's.
What, I'm sorry, what are you saying?
If you said Waste Management and Russell's were the 2 closest bidders,
Yeah, their average composite score was 24.3 for Russell and 22.8 for Waste Management.
and
That's the
everybody's scores down the road were very consistent, except for Randy's.
Kevin was one above, oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking
Yeah,
wrong.
25, and everybody's pretty much
One person tipped the scale on that
tipped
one?
it big time.
But I mean, that was, that was the quantitative, but we actually thoroughly discussed each one of the proposals as well. It wasn't just we went by the numbers and run. This was just sort of a starting point to start the discussion.
Yeah, the reason you have 6 people scoring is to take out any
Anomalies.
anomalies in one person's score,
It's just
which is why I use the team as opposed to me scoring them myself, because I might be more harsh or, or more lenient toward one vendor or another. But when you have 6 different people scoring.
No, there's other
take
ones that
that
are
out.
larger.
Yeah, and you'll always have that,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Any more questions from the board?
I just, it says that July is gonna be free to the customer, which is us, due to a surplus revenue in the trash. So how much did we have in that?
Well, we've had a surplus for, from 3 years back, and it was about 400 some odd thousand. And so annually, each year at the town meeting, in order to fund the solid waste budget, we've been applying $100,000 of retained earnings a year to maintain, to allow for a price reduction from 180 to 160, and then maintain that. So we've been doing that for the last 3 years, and it's really primarily because of the recycling efforts of the community that we've been paying sort of flat prices on tipping fees. So they've generated the savings themselves. So now, after this year, I haven't closed the books yet, but we're probably going to be somewhere around 100, 150, something like that. But then we've got to pay a month's worth of bills, which is between $70,000 and $80,000, and then we've got to buy back the bags and tags. So at the end of the day, there'll probably be something left there, and then we'll can't be appropriate. There's nothing can be done with it other than pay some bills that we have, and then ultimately that would be identified as something that could go back.
Once it all shakes out and we see what the bottom line surplus is, we'll make some decisions about what can we do with it. It can only go to solid waste collection, but, you
It has
could
to be
have
appropriated.
you could have a holiday for folks in the fall where we paid for a brush pickup or something like that.
Yeah.
You could have a day where everybody put bulk waste out and the town paid for it through the trust fund. We've got to let the dust all settle, though, because we don't know how many bags and tags are out there under the old vendor that we're going to have to buy back. So once we buy those back, we see where this all settles out in a month or two, then we'll know what the balance is. And we're given the we're paying out of the trust fund for the month of July. The ratepayers aren't paying that. That's a free month.
Well, I
paid
mean,
out
if
of
the
trust.
ratepayers are gonna be, have been paying for the town all along, I mean, I think that's the least we can do.
Yeah, so that's, they're getting something back.
Plow back to the community.
And we're not gonna, it's not gonna hurt us, like, I know that we're like ranked number 2 for recycling, right? It's us and Nantucket, right?
Yeah.
Is that still gonna be the same?
That's all up to the residents. I mean, if they continue to recycle the way that they do, we'll continue to be a leader in that. I mean, I think the community can be very proud about their efforts in recycling. Boy, when you throw an idea like that, a Yankee conservative idea like that, and this town has embraced it, and it's really gonna be up to them, going forward. I think that's
It's-
probably a discussion to have to Mark's point, when you can start considering fully automated.
We're not changing the way the program works.
Right.
So it's a pay-as-you-throw, meaning the more you recycle, the less it costs you to get rid of refuse.
Yeah.
So it's identical, still going to have the bins and all that. So people have every incentive and opportunity to continue to be great recyclers. And this contract makes it in their best interest to do so because they save money. So we're not anticipating any erosion of the position we've got. Now, at some point, if the town in the future looks to a different system, like automated, then frankly, you probably will see a reduction in how good we recycle, because it will become like the other towns where a lot of stuff gets commingled and we don't do as well, because once you get that great big barrel,
Everything goes in it?
it's not worth your
Doesn't have
while
to.
to
Yeah, I
save.
know, no, it shouldn't.
Well, thank you. You guys there's been a lot of work and a lot of people involved in this. I think the last step is to get it out in the public so people aren't surprised, and you obviously know that.
We have more work to do there. I know Russell said they're gonna send some communications out to the residents, and we've got to change our messaging, on the website, and so there'll be a fair amount of communication over the next month on this.
And last question, and this seemed like it was a fair process. It took a long time. There was a lot of people involved. This was not subject to the 30B procurement?
No. Refuse collection contracts in Massachusetts are not subject to 30B, but we styled it
Same process?
as a competitive 30B procurement and pretty much follow the rules as are required to a T, including a pre-bid conference, bid changes with formal notification, all vendors, et cetera. So we styled it like that. And if in fact if for any reason this were challenged, it's all fully documented. And we did that because we knew there was going to be a lot of interest. We had a huge amount of interest. By the way, one thing I want to mention to the board, Kevin Duquette here from the Board of Health did phenomenal work. He's been researching this thing for about the last 9 months. I've learned more about trash hauling than I ever thought I would or ever wanted to know. Due to Kevin's tutelage, he's done a tremendous amount of work for us and putting this RFP together, and if you saw that document, you'd be impressed. And when we met with the vendors, I think we did 10 bid changes or something, so we learned even more. This has been a pretty complicated process, and Kev really spearheaded it and deserves a lot of recognition for an outstanding piece of work.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, Randy.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Street lighting?
Yep. You want to talk about streetlights?
You know what? I got to grab, you're a little early on me. I needed to grab a file in there, and I didn't get it. So can you give me 1 minute to grab that?
Okay. You guys want to take a quick
Why don't we
one?
take, yeah.
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. M&Ms. Everyone, welcome back. A couple items left. Streetlights. Want to talk a little bit about the streetlight policy?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, board asked pursuant to the citizen question that came up tonight, and actually a couple of weeks ago, to get back to you and let you know, A, was there a policy of the board with respect to streetlights? And more specifically, was there a policy that resulted in the turning off of streetlights, which apparently happened many, many, many years ago? Nobody knows the exact date, but it was many years ago. First answer to the first question is that there is no written policy. Apparently, there was a decision made either by the board or a town manager. We don't know. I think there might have been a town meeting vote, I heard, but that might have been on the budget. I'm not sure. So the bottom line is there is no policy right now, put it that way.
Oh, excuse me. I was cleaning out my late husband's office, and I found the booklet, the streetlight program.
We'd love to have it, because we...
Okay, I'll bring it in. It's, so there is a program and a study.
I'd love to look
Found
at
it,
that, because
okay.
that might tell us something that we haven't been able to discover
Yeah.
so far. But in terms of a Board of Selectmen policy or a town manager policy, there isn't something that says like street, and I've actually seen policies like this that say that streetlights on any curve in the road in greater than X number of degrees will have a streetlight. Every intersection will have a streetlight. Streetlights will occur no less than every 700 feet. I've seen policies like that, but we don't have one like that. We do have a computer listing of where all the streetlights are that we own and the ones that are privately owned, but I haven't been able to find anything more than that. Maybe there's something more in that document you're talking
It's in there.
Good, okay, great. Second thing you asked for is what's the cost to install a streetlight? Now, this is a town streetlight. We own about a third of the lights. The other two-thirds are privately owned by National Grid. So, our contractor is Republic ITS, and they charge $463 for a 6-foot arm, the thing that goes out, a 50-watt light, that's the standard light. That's the orange one, this sodium vapor light. Not the white one, that's mercury vapor, and not a bulb, that's an incandescent, nobody puts those in anymore. But this is the orange-looking bulb, and that's sodium vapor. That's a 50-watt sodium vapor, wiring and installation, $463. Then there is a survey and connection fee from National Grid because they own the pole for $300. So it's $763 to put a new light in.
Why do we have to pay National Grid when, you know what, we let them use our,
Property.
yeah, we've gone through this before, like, you know, when we were gonna do that contract for them, I don't get it, why would we, I would make sure that we don't pay that.
You pay it, or they won't let you put the light on their pole.
Well, then,
Then we won't move the next one.
you know, what if Comcast owns the phone?
If you want to
The
get
battle
in,
every time.
if you want to get into that on a separate night, I'll be
All
happy to
right,
give you all the
I will.
background.
I
And
probably will.
It's outrageous the way it works, but nonetheless, it's the law in Massachusetts. You can say thank you to the legislature and the DPU. You really want to do this now?
No,
All right,
no, don't worry about it.
Roger wants to give some clarity.
Okay.
This is
Brief.
an age-old problem, and it hasn't been solved in 50 years that I know of. And I think that in order for it to be solved, you know, every town in Massachusetts is gonna have to sign a pact, and that might not even work, because the public utility companies are regulated through the DPU. And you guys know from the storm
Yeah.
last year what that means. I won't say any
It's a
more.
nightmare.
But we do have bylaws, though, that,
Yeah, but they also,
we-
you remember when they were talking about putting lines underground for Verizon? There's laws that trump the local bylaw, and I think they were being courteous to a point, and then they pushed us on it at the end. I'm just dealing with the project that we're trying to put lines underground, and it goes back to historic easements and rights, and
Right.
It's difficult.
because we said, okay, you don't have to pay for the easement.
Then they said,
To
then you
them.
don't, then we'll take the pole away and
And
you don't
then-
get electricity, you
Then,
Right.
know.
okay, well, that's
So
a
it's
battle
a-
for another day, so,
Yes.
just
So
the
it's a-
facts, sir.
It's a one-time charge of $763 to put the light in. That's a one-time charge. Then after that, all we pay for is any maintenance, like if the bulb breaks or whatever, we got to replace it, the arm gets hit by lightning, truck hits it, whatever. Then there is a monthly fee of $1.12 per fixture for the electricity, $13.44 a year. But then, because just like our residential bill, there are three components of it. There's generation, there's, oh my goodness, what do they call it? It's when they send it from
Transformation.
where, transmission, thank you, Mark. So there's two additional charges, and it all works out to around $100 a year. It's a little more, a little less, but about $100 a year for that light, for the electricity for the year. So that gives you the basics that you wanted.
Okay.
And in terms of turning all the lights back on that are off or anything like that, we pay about $100,000 a year for the number of lights we have on. And there are lots and lots and lots of lights that are not on. I think it's every fifth light is what we currently put on. So in order to put every light on, that, you know, that's on a pole, figure rough and tough another $400,000 or an increase, or a budget of about $500,000 in order to do that. So that would be prohibitive. We do not have that money.
But who checks to make sure that there is indeed a light on an intersection and?
Yeah, we look at them case by case. If somebody calls and says, as the lady said, that an intersection light or light on a curve is out, we're very happy to put those on. Or it's, I had one turned on some time ago, that was down by the Rod and Gun Club, because there was no lighting for a distance of about 1/8 of a mile, so we put one on in the middle of that span. So we do it on a case-by-case basis, and generally, you know, unless there's some good reason, we'll turn the light on for folks.
Yeah.
But as the request was made tonight to just blanket, put all the lights on all the poles on
Oh,
4
well,
or
no.
5 streets,
Yeah.
were you to order that, the immediate cost, you know, would be manageable, but we would immediately have the problem, if you're going to do that on 4 or 5 streets, what are you going to do for the other 100
Right,
streets?
right.
So,
Okay.
right now, my recommendation is, it seems to be working. We don't get a lot of requests. We get maybe 10 a year, and we turn them on. And seems to be working, and so that's the only complaint we've had.
I think one of our neighboring towns just went through this process with a selectman. The selectmen, in their infinite wisdom, said, well, shut the lights out to save money. And it was problematic because of the safety issues, and then they wanted a study, and I think they ended up just turning them all back on, so.
Yeah, I
you know.
wouldn't recommend that we turn the lights off in Foxborough. We saw what happens when the lights go off in Foxborough. It's not pretty.
So if it's not broken, don't fix it maybe, right now? Unless.
Yeah, I just
unless
think
it's-
if
you get
people
complaints.
have, you know, legitimate complaints
Mrs.
that it's.
Kennedy did,
Like, then, you know, or if they see an intersection that isn't lit at night, you know, just call the town hall and,
Or a handicapped child or something.
yeah, there's circumstances
Special,
that,
you know,
yeah,
so-
that warrant it, and all they have to do is call us, yeah.
One question that kind of spun out of this a little bit, if there's questions, because I've been getting some calls for street signs, lighting, you know, once you offer something, it comes in, and I think other selectmen have as well. Please don't reach out to Roger, and not that you were complaining, but I got in the middle of all this stuff that's going on. If there's a question, you go through Kevin, and that way we're not giving direction to Roger, because Roger's running around trying to please all 5 of us. And it's probably.
And that's my
It's
job.
not an issue now, but it is a little problematic, so, you know, either
Strike
go
my
through me
orders,
or go
Roger.
through.
Yeah, I don't want to miss the enjoyment of that, so please don't put it front.
Which brings us, can you talk to that lady about the child sign? I don't know if you got my email.
Yes, I did.
Off of,
I haven't talked to her yet, but I'm just gonna do it. It's the thing to do.
Just so you folks know, when you send me an email like that, whether it's for a street light or a road sign or something, generally speaking, whatever it involves, be it a complaint about speeding, whatever department, it usually goes out within a day or 2 or 3 to the department head, basically as fast as I see it on email, with a request for the department head to report back by email typically, and then I'll CC you And if it's something that I think really the whole board should know about, because it's something others may be getting calls about, then I'll CC all of you to let you know. And then we just take those responses and we drop them in a file in there called our citizen complaint file. And sometimes we get written ones and we respond in writing. Same thing, it's in there if you ever want to look at it. Not a ton in there, but there's a few.
Okay. All right, 2 items left. Discussion on town manager's salary. What I had emailed, or I'd asked Sandra to email, was Kevin's contract, so you should all have that. And then the addenda that we released. Well, that was initiated, I think it was around February, and the minutes were just released today on that. So you should have his contract with the dates and the salary and the adjustment. So, start, anyone from the board? Pick somebody.
Don't pick me.
Well, let me back up a little bit,
Well,
because
yeah, do you have,
aside from his personal review, at Kevin's performance review, I got some heat from some citizens that said, how dare you do Kevin's review in the public?
We have
How would
to.
you like that in the public? And Mass law is very specific that his reviews have to be in public, and there's reasons for that. There's uncomfortableness, and I'll be the first to say, I don't like doing it. I'm sure Kevin doesn't like doing it in the public. But the benefit of doing it in the public far outweighs of doing it in the private, across the board to any of the public contracts. So the reason that we did his review in public was because it's required. The reason we're doing his salary review is required. And I think one of the attorneys brought that up during the interview process. That was a change. They didn't know it. They advised, you can do it. The only time you do it in private is if there's a legal issue or
Personnel.
you're negotiating with them in the first place. That's in private. But this has to be in public. So I somewhat apologize for the uncomfortableness about talking about your salary, but I thought it was important for people to understand that. So we have a contract that began in 2010 on October 4th, and we're required to review it come May, I believe, June, and it's based on his performance on meeting his goals and objectives. And that's what we went back in February to kind of clarify that, and went back and forth. So there's documentation on the amendment to clarify it, and that's what we did with the council. And we're here to look at not his performance review, because that's what we did last time, that's passed, but the merits of a increase, decrease, leaving, well, actually not decrease, but
That's
zero
fine. Can't
on the
do
way
that.
up. That's what his contract requires. Lorraine?
Okay, well, I went back through the evaluation and, looked at all the comments again, and, I think that the overall summary where Kevin has met Selectmen's expectation warrants a discussion on what type of increase should be awarded out in the private sector. Again, I can only speak for a couple of companies that I'm familiar with. Typically, you'll see a 2.5% to 3.5% increase for someone who meets expectations. Someone might luck out and get a 4 if they're at exceeds expectations. So where we meet expectation, I thought maybe that could be like a starting point of discussion for us to talk about. I think that the list of accomplishments is significant, and while there are certainly areas that all of us wish to see improvement, I think, Kevin has acknowledged that he will continue to work to improve in those areas. And, I think it will be important to recognize the body of work that has been accomplished to date. It was a rough year all around. A lot went on. And I think even despite that, so many goals were met. So, I think I would just throw those numbers out as a starting point. I did ask what the step increases were in the new pay plan, which would be merit-related. Those are also 2.5% to each of those. to the new
Yep,
plan, so with some flexibility there for merit.
on
So-
some, not on all, though.
I think on, is it on all the, in the personnel, in the salary update that just happened, where there are now 10 steps, is that correct?
Correct.
And each year, when someone is evaluated, there's some potential merit component to that. So if, say, someone does not meet standards, they wouldn't get the full 2.5% step, correct?
Correct.
Right. So the expectation, I think typically, when you do a step program like that, you have meet standards will bring you to the 2.5. And then typically, if you have people who do not meet standards, those are offset by the people who exceed standards, and you end up with a budgetary number that comes in on target.
So your suggestion is between 0 and 3, is that what you said? Is
I'm
that- or
suggesting
not-
between 2.5 and 3.5 is what is out in the industry, so that I'm familiar with.
Okay.
Certainly, it depends on how well the company's doing, so
Exactly.
I think that we're, we have established somewhat of a pattern, I think, here with the town salaries, that a meet standards would be in that realm. I don't think it's unreasonable for a meet standards.
Okay, anyone else?
Just, so we,
Thank you, Frank.
so it was 3%
Last year?
for last year,
Last year
correct?
was 3%. With a caveat on that, it was 3% because it was a dispute. And I think at the end of that exercise, it wasn't a merit, it wasn't a COLA, it was an agreement, because both sides, if you remember, we gave them 0.
Right,
And then there was a dispute on the contract.
yep.
Before it went too far, we agreed
I just
that it
kinda
was
want
3%.
this.
Yeah.
Just- Yeah,
And that's why I wanted those many, because I think everyone needed to understand
Yeah.
that. But at the same time, once we signed that agreement, we also said we're not gonna go backwards
Right.
and penalize them for that, or count that as a raise. It's kind of, that's what he thought the contract was.
mhm.
We thought it was less, he thought it was more, we kind of met
Right.
in the middle.
Going forward, the agreement is based on merit.
Solely
So-
on merit, not on COLA, which is cost of living.
Right.
And the, and we keep saying, well, what was done in the past, the way that Andy did his contracts, or the town did it with Andy, he got a cost of living. It was specifically excluded in Kevin's contract that he does not get a cost of living, it's solely on merit.
Mhm.
However, because it was done in the past, there was an expectation it was gonna continue, so that's where we had the
Right,
butting heads a little bit.
right.
And it ended positively, but
Mhm.
it was a 3%, but it's not a cost of living or a raise, it's something. We
Right.
got 3% last year,
In a tough year.
in a tough year.
In a tough year. And again, a tough year. And we're asking folks to take 0.
They-
Are you shaking your head? No?
Yeah, I think
No,
they've
we're
already
not.
they've already taken their 0, so now everyone is back up to,
Right.
Well,
What
they
I'm
took a
saying
0
is-
for a year, and then a 3%, so the average over the 2 years was 1.5.
Someone won one split.
Oh, that's right.
And nobody took a 0.
If the people took a 0.
Took a 0.
That took a 3% last year.
Right.
And if they take a 0, then they'll take a 3, so the average was 1.5.
So Kevin got 3% last year.
Anyone else?
Jenny? Nothing? Okay. I'm just trying to go in order, I think last year is the most difficult year I've ever seen this town go through. the natural disaster, a second natural disaster, a conflict of, well, I say, a disagreement of where the town would be moving forward between the citizens, and troubled issues with board members personally. It's my 6th year on this board, I think. I forget. I think it's my 6th. I've never seen anything like this year in my life. And combined of all 5 prior. I think there's definitely room for improvement. Absolutely, everybody here can improve. We're all improving every day. I think do agree that Kevin deserves something this year. I think I would say it at 2% myself, and we can discuss it further, because it's equivalent to what other people have gotten. I do expect better this year. I'll put that out there. I expect him to be more improved this year. I think he's figured out the town. I think he's figured out the board, and we need to move forward and work together. And I think the incentive by giving him 2% is where I would be right now. And let's seems like I think there's some agreement as the board that there's some merit there. So, just debate it with the board and see what we come up with.
Is the 2% based on the average of the reviews, or how do you arrive at 2%?
About what every other department has basically got on average is 1.5 to 2, right?
Now, going forward, there are 2.5 are the steps.
Yep. And there's other things that are involved in their negotiations that aren't involved with this, so when you put it all together, I think it's around 2. So that's where I'd be going on it right now.
Now, the other staff still get the cost of living. So if we give them a 0 and a 3 for an average of 1.5, do they still get the cost of living? The contracts that you work with the staff?
No. The increases granted this year across the board for all union employees were the 1/1 COLA.
That's right.
Now, there's the
1%
1% on July 1, 1% on January 1, so it's a 1.5 cost of the town this year, a 2% going forward next year. You understand how that works? 'Cause
Say that again?
okay. It's a 1/1 split cost of living this year, 1% on July 1, 1% on January 1, which means the employee gets 1.5% this year, but
Okay.
that becomes a 2% on July 1 of next year. It's just a
Okay.
way to cost the town a little bit less money, that's all. Then, for the union employees, there was a variety of other things. There could have been increases in clothing allowance or stipend pays, things like that. I don't want to get too specific here.
Okay.
So that the goal we were shooting for was to have the union contracts, cost of contract, which is all in, be around 2%. For the non-union employees, they agreed to give up their 1/1 split in favor of being put on the new pay plan. Now, I can't give you a number in terms of what happened, because for some employees, that was a very, very large increase on a percent basis, but that wasn't a raise. That was because the employee's position was being underpaid, and the study revealed that, and so they came up to where they should have been. For other employees, there might only be a few $100s. For some, it was a couple $1,000s. But it wasn't a raise, it wasn't a merit raise or a COLA, it was simply the new grade that they were going to be on and the step that they were closest to currently, but not less than. So it was a bit of the luck of the draw where that ended up, everybody going.
Okay. So when we compare it to, I mean, you bring up a good point, Lorraine, but when you talk about in your experience in the private sector, average or meeting expectations is 2% and
2.5 to
2.5 to
3.5.
3%. But to be fair, in the private sector, in the last 3, almost 4 years, meeting expectations, you know, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you're lucky you have a job, and usually you're working a second job because you got a pay cut, or your hours went down on the average, and those are circles that, you know, that my experience on the private sector. When times are really good, the private sector makes a lot more, and the public sector suffers a little bit because they're in these steps in, you know, the 1% and 2%. So I keep going back in my mind to one of the first steps that we did to try to save the town money is to say, look, everyone's going through a tough time, private and public. There's layoffs coming, there's cuts, you know, everyone's doing it in every town around. Foxborough was blessed because, you know, we didn't have those same drastic cuts. But I think the marching orders was 1.5 over a 2-year period. And where Kevin got the 3% last year, regardless of how he got it, it was 3% last year. I think it's got to be 0% this year. And then you're on the same plane with everyone else that's working that we're giving the same orders in the same direction to. You know, if there was something that he was doing that was extraordinary, then say, well, maybe it merits it because these are, you know, heroic efforts. Or on the flip side, if there was something that our town manager doing that was so egregious you wanted to, you know, fire him or say 0. But right now, Kevin's right in the middle. I think there's no way you could have foreseen what was coming this year, and I thought you did very well. But there is room for improvement. Some people thought he did up, some people thought he did down. I think it's right in the middle. And what's in the middle that everyone else got was a 0-3. And he got the 3, and I think it needs to be a 0, but it's not reflective of the fact that we're thinking you're doing 0% work. I think that's the times, and that's the marching orders. And if it doesn't come from the boss, you know, walk the walk rather than talk the talk, I think we're in having a hard time justifying going up to 2% after 3% when nobody else in town got that, even though he's the leader and he's working directly for us. And I say that, and it's uncomfortable, and it's public, and it's not reflective of your work ethic or your achievements, but I think that's where I'm at with this right now.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to say I disagree, Jim. I think that, you know, I view it last year, whatever was negotiated. And again, that was related to meeting standards, meeting many, many goals and objectives last year. And I think that not recognizing this body of work, I mean, you know, it's like Mark said, this is the toughest year he's ever experienced. I agree with that 100%. And I think, you know, the crisis handling that was demonstrated was well done. I think this is a matter of recognizing a professional's performance. I know I would view it as personally, if it was me, I would view it as a tremendous slap in the face to not be recognized in any way for such a body of work that has been produced. And, you know, again, I think looking at the improvement piece, where Mark is suggesting starting at 2%, I could even envision doing something like start at 2%, make it 6 months out, 0.5 more, if standards are met in the areas that were considered deficient in this evaluation, so that there is some closer than a year monitoring or feedback, I guess, in terms of what the board's expectations were for areas of improvement. So I really think we would not be doing the position, we would be doing a disservice to this position as the senior executive of the town by not recognizing the accomplishments.
But I don't disagree, but I think a lot of Kevin's accomplishments are not all of Kevin's accomplishments. It's his staff, it's the people he works with, it's the departments, and they're all great people, and if we're saying 0 to them, I have a hard time saying, 3 plus 2 more. You know, it's a team effort, and
This is going forward, though, because, I mean, the zero happened over the past 2 years. Now everybody's headed in the same direction for 2013. So I think, you know, again, for over an 18-month period, that 3%, whatever it was going to be related to, you know, if there hadn't been the dispute, and that was viewed just, again, related to goals and objectives, you know, I still think we're in the, we're where all the other employees is going forward. Everyone is getting an increase. To not give an increase to the person who, you know, the town administrator, any senior manager in any company, of course, all of their employees are doing all that work, but they are orchestrating it. They are the maestro, call it what you want. They ensure that that work happens. And it takes a certain skill to do that. Not everyone is born a manager, and a lot of people who are in management positions struggle because that you can't learn that skill. Some people just innately have it. Some do it better than others. But I think that, again, in his role as town manager, and as we have evaluated him based on this work being accomplished, I strongly recommend that we consider, at a minimum, 2 now, 0.5 more 6 months later, if not 2.5 right now, because I feel that, again, 2.5 is on the low end of someone who has met expectations, who has accomplished this body of work.
but you're also speaking from someone who rated him the highest. There's 4 other people there that didn't
Well,
rate him that high.
Mark and I rated him very similarly. So, you know, I think, and again, even when you take Larry's ratings out,
Let's not go down that road,
okay,
okay?
well, I'm
Let's
just
stay
trying to say, all
positive
right.
here.
So
Let's,
I don't want anybody to think that I skewed this.
no, not at all. No,
Okay.
but I think everybody on this board needs to put their opinion out, respect everybody's opinion, come up with a consensus. And so far, we got 3 solid ones, and I'm looking down the other end of the table. Does,
Oh, mine, that's why I started off with, you know, we had given the 3%, and Kevin has been working with the unions and the non-unions, and, you know, told them they had to take the 0. So they took the 0. So now I think it's Kevin's turn to take the 0. I think it's only going to better his relationship when he goes and he sits down at the table to these folks. And I'm not positive, but I think that even the new superintendent took a 0. You know, so I think, am I wrong? Did you? She didn't. She took a what?
She had an increase.
She had
when
an
she came
increase?
on as new superintendent.
Okay. I just, you know, so didn't Kevin. And now I think it's,
But I think, you know, the 0, that was in place before Kevin even got here. I mean, you know, that, again, we're talking about past 2 years.
right, and they haven't been the best 2 years, Lorraine, money-wise. I'm just saying, that's what we've preached to everybody, that we don't have the money to do this. And that's what Kevin presented, and he told us all. So, you know, I'm not saying that Kevin's done anything wrong. I'm not taking anything away from Kevin. I just think that right now, if this is going to be the contract for next year, for 1 year, I just think he needs to take that 0. I think it's going to be huge for him in the leadership of the rest of the employees in town. It's just a trust thing, you know?
I don't understand that.
Well, Lorraine, like, you know, I would love to say, you know, and I'm in the, you know, I'm out there in the private sector, and I haven't seen an increase in several years. I've gone through this before. I've lost 20%, and I don't think that I'm alone in a lot of that. And, you know, I'm hoping that the new pay plan will help some of the individuals get to where they're supposed to be, but I believe that Kevin is where he's supposed to be right now, and I think that for this next year, he should take the 0. Just to show.
How's it feel?
I'm
to be the-
sorry.
How's
Was
it feel to be the swing vote?
Was I done?
Well, okay, you're saying that you're looking at everybody's salaries on in 2 years, right? And you're averaging out so that 0 1 year.
That's been the
to
policy over the
next.
last 2
Yeah.
years, yeah.
So if that's the policy now, that means then going forward, the next year, it's not going to be like that. It'll be back to normal.
Be a different, yeah.
No, so I tend to agree that, if everyone has been asked to take a 0 and a 3 or 0 and whatever,
This is.
and it's not and it's not a reflection on Kevin. I agree. I think it's you got to take one for the whole town.
Let me ask
If
this.
we're asking the other unions to, to do that.
Kevin, if you're uncomfortable, let me know, and if it's not per contract, but when I've always done the reviews with the people that work with me, they do a review, we do a review, and I ask them, what are you expecting? I ask you a lot of advice on all the issues that come to town, so I'm gonna throw this out to you. We're in a crossroads here where if we go in a direction that you're not happy, it's gonna be harder for us, but, so be it. You've got expectations coming to this for your performance review and your salary review. What's a number that you would like to see? And if you don't, I'm putting you on the spot and I don't expect an answer, but if you wanted to answer, I'm willing to listen.
I won't offer the board a number. Thank you for the opportunity. All I expect, in my expectation, is that you evaluate me fairly. I think you've done that. I think you did a great job. There are pluses and minuses, as there always are. And now I think the board has to decide, what that review merits. And whatever your decision is, I can assure you, I will respect it. I know how hard you worked at the evaluations. I saw them. That was a lot of hard work. And I know, as uncomfortable as this may be for me, it's also uncomfortable for you. This is not an easy thing to do. I also know that you're trying to balance performance with political expectations, people that you answer to, your constituents, and what they think is fair and not. And I also know, and this is probably more importantly than anything, I signed a document that says, from this point forward, I will trust you, ladies and gentlemen, to do the fair and right thing, as however you view that to be. I didn't sign that because I intended to complain after you made your decision. I signed it because I decided to trust you.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that helped.
Right.
Thank you, Kevin, seriously.
I'm in kind of an awkward position because if this had been done the first week in May, I wouldn't have to make a vote. I wouldn't have to decide. This should have been done beforehand.
No,
So
this is by contract,
No,
until July. Performance
Oh,
was before
okay.
the contract says.
Okay, all right.
Till
So,
July,
well,
so you're right where you're supposed to be.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, the
welcome.
performance evaluations were, I wasn't really part of that.
Yep.
Where I'm coming from is I'm just looking at what the other town employees have been asked to do. And that's what I'm looking at. Figuring the next year, we start fresh, and then, you won't be caught up in that 2-year cycle. So,
Well, what I see here from the board right now is two people split on the percentage of a 0.3, which puts it at a 1.5 on average of what everybody else getting. I've seen an average of 2. So if we're gonna go on that, I think we're gonna go with a 1% increase, because I see the number 4, I don't see the number 3. Because with the COLAs and the other things that comes up, if your board's willing to consider that, that's, but I think, if we're stuck in the middle, there's compromise. 2 are saying this, 2 are saying that. Is there room for compromise in the middle here? Show some good faith and, for the future? Or do we just, I can see the way the board's gonna vote right now. I'm trying to turn it a little bit. To say, you know what, let's throw something there. To say, okay, we want you to stay and play. We're gonna give you a little more, but you're on.
What are you saying, Mark? We want you to stay and play. Come on, that's silly.
Well, it's kind of just
It's-
I know I'd be
Right,
disappointed.
and you know what? Do you know how hard it was for Kevin to go to those people and tell them, look, you're not getting anything this year. You're not getting anything. It was very hard.
It was very
because
hard for all of us.
there was all discussions about, having a new town hall and everything, and all these things, and he had to go and tell those people. It's very difficult for me to say, Kevin, I'd like you to take the 0, but I'm not saying that, like, and he didn't just say, well, if you don't give me anything, I guess I'm just gonna leave because you're not
understand.
appreciated. I'm hoping that, we do see Kevin, be able to spend more time doing the things that we want him to focus in on, and those things. I'm not taking anything away from his job, and I'm not asking him to, like, make a decision to stay or leave. Has nothing to do with it. What it has to do with is what's fair is fair. And we have gone to other people in town and said, look, you're gonna have to take a 0.
And that wasn't negotiated.
We couldn't, Kevin had to do that.
Well,
So
it's-
now, I know what Kevin must have gone through, because it's hard, but
Wasn't that the year, though, that Kevin came, that the people took their 0? I guess that's the piece.
This is-
I almost feel like we're penalizing the person for something that happened over the span of the past 2 years, where they came in on one of those years that decision had already been made. So,
I don't think so, Lorraine. The timing was, this was October, I think, August, September that we hired
And
him.
I remember Kevin was
So
the one that was discussing the zeros with us, and we were like, whoa, geez,
And we haven't
I've
had
never
a
heard of
review
0.
since that, other than he got a 3 when everyone else got the 0. He came in, his contract, remember, it was going through August, September. I forget
Kevin
when this
had
was
to tell
signed.
people that it was 0.
All right, well,
Let me just double check. Yeah, this was in October, so it was mid-year.
October of 2010.
So when he got his review last year,
It was July of
off a little bit,
2011.
I don't think that he took 2 zeros. I think he took,
No, because he came in
Yeah.
October.
all right.
so I think the discussion is, at his next review, now that he's gone through the cycle that everyone else has,
Yeah.
how, and I
And
think
we'll have
everyone
to
else
see
at that
what
point is gonna be.
everybody else is gonna be at.
they're
If
gonna be on the
at
merit raise
if
as
they're gonna be
well.
on the merit raise, then, it's gonna be a little different, but
I
Okay.
appreciate what Mark is trying to do also, in terms of coming up with a compromise. I think that's the least we could consider. But I just need to go back again, and when you consider the position that Kevin has come in, Kevin is a change agent. Kevin has worked under very difficult circumstances, made numerous changes that were very difficult for people to handle and implement, and they did implement them. That's the real test, I think, of, management skills. Certainly, the areas for improvement are there. We all recognize that. Kevin recognizes that. But I just don't think that it's fair to this position as CEO of the town to not acknowledge through their compensation what this individual, what this position is doing during this past year.
And I think that the
I just
contract
get- I-
shows that, Lorraine. I think that the contract shows that of, the difference between what Kevin does versus maybe one of the secretaries. But Kevin had to go to that secretary that has probably spent additional hours here doing different things, had to step up because somebody else was gone, and, done a fantastic job too, but they had to take that zero.
Right.
So, and if you look at the contract, there are certain things here, because it's a contract, that Kevin has that others don't have, and it's not just, but it's a contract, it's what it is, it's what it is, but there are additionals here that others don't get, I just
feel like we're looking back, we're not looking forward, is
Well,
what
I
it
think-
sounds like to
well,
me,
it
and
sounds
that's the
like
problem that I have.
You're trying to make it sound like, Kevin didn't do his job. Kevin
No,
had some
I'm-
problems. And you know what? Everything that Kevin went through, everybody in town went through, whether you were a union worker or whether you were a non-union worker in this town hall. You went through that stuff, and either you hung in there or you didn't.
I know,
you
but they did it with leadership, and it really was,
Right, and
leadership that
there was,
made that happen.
there was some problems too. There was some problems, just like everybody has problems.
right. If this was a conditional requires improvement outcome, definitely, I'd be taking a different position on this, but it wasn't. This is a meets standards. This is meets expectation, which means they're doing a good job.
And
That's how
we
we
keep
rate
going
it.
in a circle,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
everyone else
yeah.
is doing a good job.
Yep.
Are
Got a
getting,
zero.
Got a zero.
but they're getting
But they
2%
got a
going
zero.
forward.
And once Kevin goes through that
hopefully
cycle,
Kevin will.
then we'll go
Hopefully
forward.
Kevin will.
Can I make a motion, Mr. Chairman?
I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we keep the town manager's pay at status quo with no increase.
Motion made, seconded.
Second.
Further discussion? Going once, twice. All those in favor of the motion to keep the town manager's salary at, whatever the number is. It's the same.
148, 320.
Well, that's important to know so everyone has the same. 148, 320, you're right. Motion made, seconded, no further comment. All those in favor? Raise your hand. Aye. 1, 2, 3. All those against? 2, 3 to 2 carries. Uncomfortable, but thank you for the discussion. On behalf of the board, Kevin, it's, look forward to working with you for the upcoming year.
So do I.
I appreciate your patience.
This is what I've been looking for all night.
Discussion on town council.
You got the sheets.
So the people at home know, we had, at the last meeting, 6 firms that came in and interviewed for a half hour each. So, following that meeting, I think we planned to rank them that night, but the time got late. And so what I had asked the board to do, 6 firms, rate them 1 through 6, and send them to me, and I have not submitted back the results, so this is the first time that everyone has seen this. So if you look on the left, you've got the 6 firms, you've got our ranking, the 1, if you rank that person a 1, that's the highest, a 6 is the lowest, so 1 through 6, and there's no double, you can't have 2 number 1s. The rows and columns to the right of that, overall points. If you rank somebody a 1, they got 1 point. If you rank them a 5, they get 5 points. So if you add them all up, it shows what's order the attorneys came in. And then I put 3 more columns. The number of 1s, the number of 2s, and the number of 3s. So for instance, the attorney on the bottom, 3 people gave him number 1s. 2 people gave him number 2s. 0 people gave him number 3s. And then on the far right column, the ranking is in this order. And again, we didn't discuss point system other than ranking them 1 through 6. So if you look at the 6 firms, the top firm would be Gellerman and Cabral with a total of 10 points. The last firm would be Myaris and Harrington with 24. And the rest are in the middle. So just so the people at home understand, First firm out of the 6 was Gellerman in Cabral. The second one was Blattman, Brabowski, and Mead. The third firm was Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane. The fourth firm was Dutch Williams. Fifth firm was Kopelman and Page. And the sixth firm, as I had said before, was Myers and Harrington. Now, we never discussed that this matrix was going to be the end-all in the outcome, but it's a starting point to see where the 5 members voted on which attorney. And just so everyone knows, the information that we received, these are all the booklets, so we all had a chance to read all of the information that was given us, and then the half-hour interviews, and then a week to think about it. So I'll open up to the board for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, could I suggest that we bring the first and second counsels in for a second interview for exactly a half hour each again?
So that would be Gellerman and
Cabral.
Cabral, and then Blattman, Brabowski, and Mead.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else, thoughts, suggestions?
Would you consider the top 3 just because second and third are close to each other?
Third being Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? I mean, I'm assuming that wasn't a question to me, but to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go with the amendment of the top 3. I wouldn't mind having them come back, the 3 come back in.
Okay. Jenny, any thoughts?
Well, you had said 2. So that's what I had understood, we would have 2 people, 2 firms come in. But-
Yeah, when I'm just about, I think all of these firms can represent, and someone else had said it, they're all qualified. I think 90% of the stuff that we need to know, we got in the interview and in the booklets. I'm comfortable with 2. If you want to do 3, I'm not sure what more information
Yeah, I think
that
you're
we can
right.
get.
I think you're
'cause
right.
You know, one was a pretty strong leader, and the second and third were kind of a little further back, but
Yeah,
close.
they are further, yeah.
I guess, you know, the reason why I'm interested in seeing the second and third together is because, you know, recalling their background, I think it would be good when we have our next set of interviews to, again, have more in-depth questions, and that might help even further differentiate.
I would just disagree. I just think the
Yeah.
top 2, Lorraine, we
Top
bring in,
2.
I think was
Okay.
already, the board's already leaning that way.
Okay.
I mean,
Because not
I'm
one of the
actually
board
really
members picked.
surprised at the
Nobody
result.
picked that for number 1, I just looked at
So
that,
There's
so.
no number ones in
yeah.
there exactly, so,
Mhm.
And only one person picked him as number 2.
Yeah.
Nobody even picked him as number 3.
so I say,
2.
the
we got
top
2 number 2s.
the top 2, and that way we can move forward with this. It's been over a year since we started this process, and conclusion is near, and I'd like to see it happen sooner than later. And, I appreciate all the applicants. Like Jimmy said, anybody, one of them could represent this town, but the board has clearly said these 2. I mean, I'm ready to go with number 1 if that's the way people want to go on this board, but I think with the ones in, the number 1s, 3 got 3 number 1s, 1 number 2. I mean, I just think the top 2. And then and then we can discuss with them if the board could create 1 question on their own and submit it to Jimmy, our own questions that we'd like to ask them. We'd ask the same fair process. There's no introduction needed this time. We know who they are, so we don't need the 10-minute introduction. We can get into 1 question per board member and a follow-up, if necessary, in a half an hour. If that would be what the board would agree to.
And then from that point, invite one of them back to negotiate a contract.
Correct.
Right, because that's,
Is that a motion?
You guys comfortable with that?
the 2?
So I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we bring Blattman, Brombrowski, and Mead, and Gettleman and Cabral back for a second half-hour interview at the next scheduled meeting of your choice, and the board to prepare one question each to submit to James, the chairman, and be able to have a follow-up question in the interview process, and then the board to vote to select one to go into the negotiations with.
Okay, motion made,
Second.
seconded by Linda. Any follow-up discussion?
Makes sense.
That's it. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 5-0. Pauline?
Next agenda, I'm assuming?
Well, that next agenda is,
It might be away, I mean, it's July 4th. Yeah. Hey, you
we
can
got the,
ask.
we got the joint school committee.
My
meeting.
concern is,
Fiscal year? It's already by, right?
we really need to get somebody under an agreement other than the current
Mhm.
hourly rate, because the budget is an absolute train wreck.
Well, that's, both of these had,
So that's what I'm saying. I think you need to make a decision, and then I need to negotiate something with somebody to get this.
Well, our
of
next
control.
agenda, I don't have it all laid out, but we've got the joint school committee on the July 10th.
Understood.
Do we have a meeting before that? We
No.
just got the planning board,
No.
so that shouldn't be that big a process with the joint, the school committee's gonna make a recommendation to us, and we just debate it quickly.
yeah, I'll reach out to to Bev Lord, the chairman. I don't know how she wants to do it. I think they're gonna take the lead, but the law requires us to vote on it as well.
Right.
It's different than the other school, like the
La-
planning board
last-
sends us a recommendation. It's not the same.
Last I saw, you had 3 applicants. So if you've got 3, you do, I mean, these are all presumably folks that are known to you, so you do 15, 20 minutes each. That's 45 minutes odd.
In our,
Do,
our meeting can be less than a
hour.
half an hour,
Yeah.
because that included a lot of their presentation, which
Right.
we don't need to hear
Right.
anymore.
Yeah, right.
And-
That's what
and I-
it's quick.
yeah.
You
then
give
if you
them
do an hour for this,
Yeah.
you know, you start at 7, some other regular business, so I would guess around 9-ish,
Yeah.
you ought to be able to get into the executive session. I wouldn't get into that executive session much later than 9, because that is going to be an enormous discussion.
Mhm.
And frankly, if you don't start it till after 9, it's going to be a problem.
Yep.
And and the reason you're doing it that night is because you need the school committee jointly with you.
Yeah.
There's collective bargaining stuff.
All right, so let's put this on the agenda for July 10th. July 10th.
Would the
Yeah.
board consider starting a half hour early that night? Because that would give you,
That'd give me,
lot of
Linda,
flexibility.
about 2 seconds to finish up our,
Rain's
little
gonna
meet-
do it on the 10th.
So the meet and greet, that'll give us about quarter
we'll
of.
have tacos and Coke here for you.
Yeah,
I gotta have to have,
Fine.
from an hour and a half sitting in
Mm.
here, I'm gonna need a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
Ju-
when do you
just
start
'cause you gotta
that?
return phone calls for business and everything, so if you give me 15 minutes, start at 6:45, I'm
Quarter of
fine.
7?
Just like tonight.
Is that okay with the board?
Mhm.
Okay,
Quarter
great,
of.
thank you.
I just gotta make a few calls.
And I just wanted to say just a word about Paul Durensis and his firm. He's been a town council for a number of years. I know there's been stuff in the newspaper. I've gotten to know Paul a little bit, only on the professional side, but he's a selectman. I think he's a great person. I don't think the firm was a great fit. I think that's where you saw it in the rankings. But a stand-up gentleman, he worked very hard for the town. And I just want to make it clear, it's not a reflection of him personally or anything specific. In my opinion, it's just that as councils change, as this one did, and the one prior, it's circumstances, it's direction of town, it's things that are on the plate.
Personnel.
You know, I get jobs all the time, and I lose them because of staff, whatever. I just want to make it clear, it's not a reflection of Paul's ethics or
No.
whatever. It is what it is, so I wanted to thank him for his service.
Okay. To action, Mr. Chairman?
Yep. Okay, we had selectmen meetings from June 12th. If you're looking through that, I just had one question on the top, Pauline, on page 2. Where it says, on the very top sentence, talking about if anyone wants to be considered for the school committee, please feel free to come to the meeting. I think it was, please feel free to apply with the Board of Selectmen secretary or schools committee
Yes,
secretary.
That's exactly what it was.
Apply with the Board of Selectmen or school committee secretaries.
Mhm.
That's the only comment I had.
I move that we accept the
Oh,
minutes.
no, I can
Oh,
talk.
I'm sorry.
I'm just waiting for that. Pauline, you all set? Sorry. Are you all set? Yeah. On page 5, the fourth paragraph, under discussion, the last 2 lines, it says Roger Hill said he is comfortable. Roger wasn't at the meeting. I think it was Kevin Pecos who said that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Right.
Thank you.
I
So,
thought Roger was here.
no, no.
Oh, he wasn't? He
Yeah.
wasn't right here, like he was
No.
tonight?
No.
Okay.
And then, in the next one, it says, Roger Hill said that using traffic coming, I don't think he said that. I think Bill Greeter said.
Bill Greeter.
And he didn't exactly say that. He just said it had been, those traffic calming things had been used around town. I think you should just eliminate it,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Just strike this.
Just
whole
don't strike it.
line. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you strike that whole line.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
right?
I move that we
You always
accept
have
the minutes as amended for June 12th.
Motion made by Linda,
Second?
seconded by Mark. All those, in further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, Pauline. Next action item, Bill Caspara has recommended that there's a request for a waiver for certain permit fees for the municipal water treatment facility over in East Foxborough.
So moved.
Just, these are fees that are borne by the town, paid to the town, nothing to do with the state.
Correct. Basically, these are all building fees on the construction of the water treatment plant. So what you're doing, in essence, is you're waiving a transfer between the Water Department Enterprise Fund to the general fund. Now, there's a definite policy question there. And that policy question, since the inspection capability by the inspectors is funded through the general fund.
Permit fees.
The reason I'm asking is because you've got
The-
2 pots of money. You've
Right,
got the
the
water and sewer
salaries-
enterprise.
Right, the salaries and fringe benefits of those inspectors is paid by the taxpayers.
Yep.
The inspections, i.e. the work they'll have to do to inspect the construction, is going to go on, and that's what the fees are intended to pay for. So if you waive them, and I don't have any objection, but if you waive them, you are, in essence, giving the water ratepayers a break and putting it on the back of the general taxpayer. There's a definite equity question there. This is not an automatic, as opposed to, let's say it was a general government building, town hall, police department, school. You're taking it away from the taxpayers and giving it back to them in the other hand. This is not like that. That's general fund, the general
So-
fund. This is enterprise fund.
So the question I
general
have
fund.
is, Bill Caspara is authoring this. It's his staff and his department budget that is gonna suffer when they send out for the electrical inspections.
It's not his budget. His budget isn't affected by this. It's income to local receipts, which we estimate each year, and we use it to balance the budget.
Yeah, but these are permit fees paid.
Yes, but those permit fees are an estimate in local receipts, so, which is $5 or $6 million a year, which we then use to balance the town budget. That's one of the components of all those revenue categories. So when you waive this, I wouldn't worry about the budget going out of balance to the tune of $67,000. The budget will likely be balanced. I think it's an equity question, which is, do you want to give the water rate payers a $67,000 break by not asking them to pay this fee through their water rate, and ask the general taxpayer, i.e. anyone who's not on the water system, to pay for this?
That's like
That's the question.
2% of the town, if that.
That's correct.
So, I mean, I'll stick to my motion, that we waive the fee.
Okay, motion made, seconded.
Second?
Any more discussion? All those in favor of waiving the fee? 5-0, Patty. There is an issue with the country store. The hearing is going to be held by the ABCC on Tuesday, August 18th, regarding alleged violations with their liquor license. So that's just more of an FYI.
This is, so that you're aware, this is something that you can also take action on if you want or not. It's up to you as a licensing authority. They are going to take whatever action they deem appropriate based upon the violation that they've observed, and you can see what it is here. You're not required to take action, but you can if you want.
I think my question is, I think this was a state operation?
Right.
A state sting, or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it.
Their jurisdiction.
Their jurisdiction, they do the hearing. However, there is a gap between when they make a finding and it comes back to the town. If you remember what happened with one of the last liquor licenses, we had no idea what happened at the state level. So when we go through our process of strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, this issue
This is
is
already-
at the
it's
state
open.
level. So I don't know if
They
this,
count it at the state level, and once we have strike 2, it counts as, it goes to strike 2 there. because
Well, I
they
think we can find
combine.
out right away
No.
instead of waiting.
You, as a local licensing authority, you're free to do an adjudicatory hearing on any licensing matter that occurs in the town concerning a license under your purview, for any reason that you decide. More than likely, and I don't know for sure, an ABCC inspector was the person who became knowledgeable of this violation, serving to a minor, a person under 21. Now, we don't, as it stands right now, we don't have the information, because ordinarily our own PD gets it, comes to me, I look at it, say, looks bad, goes to you, you decide. In this case, it went likely from their inspector direct to ABCC, so they're doing their thing.
Right.
You have access to that information if you want, but there is going to be a decision and some punishment meted out as they deem appropriate. You may consider that sufficient, you may want to do something more. It's up to you.
Confusion. It's simply confusion. When it's a violation, and it's under our purview from our departments and everything, we're not allowed to see any of the information until the day
Till
of the
the
hearing.
night of the hearing, right.
So how could we be biased if we saw all the information from the ABCC and then have a hearing?
yeah, I wasn't asking to participate in this. What
It's
I'm
just,
saying,
we
once
don't
it's
get
all
the
done,
informa-
there's a gap that we don't
We would like to
get
get
it
the
back.
information right away, and I think that our attorney could, that day that it's handed down, he can get that information. I mean, Frank can get that
But
information
we can get
for
the
us.
information, don't,
Right.
Yeah.
It's just that
we have access.
last time it happened, we didn't get that information until
After the
well
hearing.
after the hearing.
And it was specific that we weren't supposed to have that information because it was going to bias us.
Because of, right,
Yeah, when you sit in an adjudicatory capacity, it's just like a judge.
Right.
You're not supposed to know about the case before it gets presented to you in the public meeting. Right.
but if we see this come in front of us, like if there's a situation that happens between now and August 28th, I think that's more what you're concerned about, Jim, right? Is if something let's say that, we have one of our programs that happen and they happen to sell again to a minor. So we're gonna start our procedures,
That would come presumably to
and
the
it would
board.
happen anyway.
Right.
But we wouldn't know what the outcome or anything, or what exactly transpired on this. That's what,
Probably not. by that
and that's what's
date, no,
happened
'cause-
before,
Right.
Informational.
Well, it is information.
You don't have to do anything.
But
No, and I
we
wasn't.
just would like to find out what happens pretty close to after
Sure.
that date, that's all.
It's August 28th.
Yeah.
Okay, a number of donations coming into the town. Donation, $970 from the Cow Chip Bingo event at the Foxborough Founder's Day.
So move with gratitude.
Second?
It's $950.
950, it's a 950 typo. It's
Oh,
nine-
and there's a 20,
and 20
okay.
underneath.
And another 20. Second.
Correct.
So moved, with gratitude.
Gratitude. Any more
Yes.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Second donation of $1,500 from the St. Albans Masonic Angel Fund to the Recreation Gift Fund.
So moved with gratitude. Thank you.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. More discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, Pauline. And a third donation of $3,900 from the Lakeview Pavilion Charitable Foundation to the Library Gift Fund for renewal of numerous museum passes.
Very generous. So moved with gratitude.
Second?
Second, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
5-0, Pauline, thank you. And the last one was a donation of $350 from Kenneth Elevitz to the Library Gift Fund for past renewal to Providence Children's Museum.
So moved with gratitude.
Second?
Made by Mark, second by Lorraine. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And last item was release deed for a portion of Oak Street. And there was some correspondence from the Conservation Commission.
Just
Those were our articles, right, that we,
Yep, no action
you,
needed on that.
document for you to sign. It's really their purview to do it, but you need to sign it.
Okay. And really, under information, there was a letter to the board from National Grid thanking us for their time here, and then following up on Linda's request for a map on the phasing schedule of loop cleaning.
You've got the release deed over there, right?
It should be.
I think it's in this, it's right here.
Yeah.
There's a signature page for you, for the board.
Yep. Okay, with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you to
Motion
Foxborough
to
Cable
adjourn.
Access TV for bearing with us for the early start and the late ending.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, one more thing. The Asian Ginger, the new establishment of Friendlies, is requesting that they see the board. I'm not sure, there's kind of a language gap there, whether it's for a beer and alcohol, an alcohol license, a beer or wine license, or a BYO license, I've never even heard
You
of before.
bring your own.
No such thing.
There is in other towns.
In the dry towns, they have that.
Okay, that's what it, I see, I'm just
There-
bringing it forward.
If there's no licenses available,
There is.
or it's a dry town,
Yep.
then generally, boards, licensing authorities have been tolerant of allowing BYOB.
Okay.
That is, strictly speaking, it's against the law. But the liability is not on the town, it's on the restaurant owner.
Right.
In the case where
Well, I don't want to get in a big debate about it because we're not on topic here. I'm just saying, should we put them on the agenda in a month or so when
We're
to,
waiting for an opinion back from special counsel right now.
Okay.
I have the verbal opinion, but I've asked for a written opinion, and then it'll be an agenda item for
So they've
action.
already come to the town asking?
They've come and they've asked.
Okay.
There is a license available. They chose not to take it. I would have frankly immediately said absolutely
Shut
not
down.
and answered on your behalf, but I wanted to be sure, and council did, recommended exactly what I thought. If there's a license available, you just can't do that. You have to come get the license, because think about it.
Right.
You have licenses, and restaurants decide, I'm not gonna get the license, but I'm gonna let
Yeah.
people bring alcohol anyways.
so there's a beer and wine license available, but they didn't apply for it?
They did not apply for it.
Okay.
So it's an unacceptable situation. It'll come before you with the opinion for formal vote of the board, probably at your next meeting. I think it's a colossal no-brainer, if you will.
Okay.
But
Just so I
I didn't want to answer on your
Sure.
behalf, because that's really your call as a licensing authority. But we wanted to get you the opinion first, and council was away on vacation.
Okay. I got them both here. Okay, motion to
Motion
adjourn.
adjourned.
Second?
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.